Oh, yeah. Oh, lordy, 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 beesums, beesums. Got another driver attack situation. Come on now. This has never been a thing, and now suddenly, with modern day, in the modern day, with all the modern day stuff, now this is a thing. Did you guys see Ben Gvir in New York? Arrogantly walking around New York like he does in Israel? Walking around and being attacked by the people to the point where they had to hurry up and put him in a car and get him the fuck out of there? Because people were like, what the fuck, you're a war criminal. And he was walking around, big old smile on his face, smug like a motherfucker. I always wonder, though, why is it in those situations that nobody ever shoots him? Nobody ever pulls out a sniper rifle or any... Why is that? A guy like Ben Gvir, he should be executed as quickly as possible. Like, he is a horrible, horrible human being. I don't know, I just find it fascinating. And then they have, American tax dollars are being used to protect this man. This man feels like walking around New York like he's big shit. And our tax dollars have to pay for it. Like, it's so fucked up. But then again, it's just part of the show, right? That's how this works. Israel gets what Israel wants. So irritating. It makes me so mad. I just fucking hate it so much, and I just, I don't understand. I mean, I understand why we're so stupid, but I don't. Like, dude, it's 2025. Even 10 years ago when I'm saying these things, and I'm the bad guy, I'm the bad guy 10 years ago. I was talking to Charles about it yesterday. We had actually a pretty long talk about the whole thing. Because he was like, this, you hate the Jews. And I was like, well, I hate the idea of it. Anybody who walks away from the supremacy and, anybody who says, oh, we're all here together and I don't belong to this supremacist cult. I was raised in the cult, but I don't belong in the cult. Like, I have all the respect in the world for you. You have a really hard situation. Your family probably treats you like shit. Your friends, all that shit. They treat you horribly because you don't believe in the supremacy. Because that's what Semitism is. Semitism is supremacy. Matt, where you been, dude? I've been live later than my bedtime because of the night shift. Now I'm between jobs, so I will watch more. What the fuck you lose your job for? That sucks. Sorry to hear that. Oh, man. I just don't. I just... Such a broken environment. Such a broken system we live in. And everybody bitches. Like, nobody walks around going, man, the system we live in is great. Our government's great. Our politics are great. Our fucking, the way we treat everyone is the equality. Nobody talks about how great things are because they're not. Even the people with the most bitch because it sucks. Because this whole situation sucks. Like, if I was a multi-millionaire, knowing that so much of my money was being stolen and given to Israel would drive me fucking crazy. But then again, if I was a multimillionaire, I would be able to buy a voice. You know, I would be spending my money as wisely as I could. You know, buying billboards and buying airtime and doing everything I could to be able to say things that need to, or at least, you know, my perception. And then if I'm wrong, people can tell me what I'm wrong about. But this whole Israel, like, there's a reason why you never see the engagement. There's a reason why you never see anybody, you know, talk. You never see the side of things, conversing, not conversating, conversing with the other side who are pointing out, hey, this is wrong, blah, 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 blah. You never see that because there's nothing they can say, or it's the exact same thing as on my feed. You never see anybody come through and actually try to argue with me. Like, try to argue the points I'm saying. Of course, there's going to be all kinds of fucking goofy trolls that are trying desperately to get my attention by saying whatever outlandish and outrageous things they can. But that's literally how the system works. You know, I saw this video. It was the Johnson & Johnson rep was being sort of called out by one of the representatives, the government representatives, a senator or whatever it was. It was one of those fucking congressional hearing bullshits. And it's just so funny to think, like, how they pretend to care. They pretend like they give a shit about us, and we're supposed to think they do. Like, it... That's it. 2 mornings in a row. I know it. Oh, man, you're quick. Actually, you're not, because we've heard it. What the hell is that?
So they just gave us.
Yeah, party pack.
Nice. Nice. Let's try these. Which one's the best? You try any of them?
You tried the alien one.
Well, yeah, I take one, but I don't really do edible shit. They don't really do much for me. So
I'm gonna take one for my back.
Are you affiliated with this? Is this something you're working on?
No, I just had this last week in 420. So dispensary had something to get away from.
Oh, yeah. No. Well, appreciate you, man. Thank you. You just go ahead and assume we're going to eat them.
Well, I was going to throw them away.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because you assumed right. Got some party favors. Love it. It's always good to come home. That's true. I'm glad I understand you now. I've learned a lot, man. I can't thank you enough. Well, again, you would think, like, you know, like there would be more of that. You know, like, it should be this way. We should be understanding, like, we should be learning from each other. And we should be communicating, and we should be, you know, trying to figure out the best course of action for everyone. We're all in this together. It's a, you know, it's a you know, it's the only way that this whole thing works, and we, you know, humanity lives on and whatnot. Chaos on clear waters. Hit and run boat crash sparks massive casualty incident. What the fuck is this? A bustling evening on Friday on Florida's waters turned into a scene. Clearwater ferry carrying over 40 passengers was cruising peacefully when the sudden impact threw the night into disarray. Eyewitnesses describe a frantic scene as emergency services rushed to response. Individuals were declared trauma alerts, with 2 requiring immediate airlift to nearby hospital. You know what's funny is, you know what absolutely disappeared? You guys remember the boat brawl? The riverboat brawl, you guys remember that shit? A couple years ago. It had to be 2020 or 2021. The riverboat thing happened, and then the white people attacked the old black man who was just trying to do his job, and then the black people came out of the woodwork and sort of beat down the white people, and then you had like, it was such a disgusting incident on all sides. It was so fucking weird to watch as like the system was like, yay, black people, good job for attacking a group of white people, and you know, like the folding chair became like a symbol for a minute there. And the folding chair was one crazy black guy decided to he hit an unarmed female while she was sitting down. He hit her with that chair. And how that became a symbol of resistance or anything, like, you see how it works, you know, because there's intelligent people and there's white people who are going to see that and be like, no, that's awful. She was an unarmed woman just sitting there. You know, she was sitting on the ground and he hit her with the chair.
Oh, he on the door. Standing at the door, and he was like, here. Hit this too. It's supposed to have hash in it. Gagged. It was so bad.
I would think so, but so many are distracted by stupid nonsense to fill the void in their lives. If only they realized them being non-confrontational is what allows this system to continue. Yeah, I mean, you know, confrontation doesn't mean physical. Confrontation is just calling out what you see. Calling out the negative. Like the whole thing, like I said, the riverboat brawl. I was so disgusted by black people in that incident. Yeah, it was nice that they were standing up for each other, but at the point where the attack on the old black man stopped, that was the end. That should have been the end of it. Instead, the black people then turned it into something that was much uglier. And you know, the craziest part is, you ever wonder why that situation, that story just disappeared like it did? Don't you notice that thing was like, it was everywhere. It was, every news station was talking about it, every talk show, every Jimmy Kimmel, anybody and everybody was talking about it. I remember on WWE, The New Day came out with the white folding chair, like they were showing their solidarity and shit. That shit was everywhere, and then it just vanished. And nobody did any sort of follow-up. There was nothing. What happened? Well, at least according to my crazy conspiracy mind, it came out that they were Jays. It's that simple. The attackers, the quote, white people, were Jays. That's why they had that sense of entitlement. They can just park their boat where they want to and fuck you for saying anything. If you look at the names that you were given, I forgot what they were at this point, but it was some sort of Stein, something, Berg, something, man, something. Why else would that story disappear? Why did it disappear? You know, we just have to start calling it for what it is. And if I am somebody who thinks I'm calling it for what it is, only to be wrong, then I need to be called out. Like, I'm not saying that everybody else is guilty and I should be... ugh. The fuck are they using little girls for? Well, my comment just got deleted. I watched it. Which one? YouTube hates you. Well, if you support me and you follow my feed and you comment and you show any sort of... Yeah, you just made the list, dude. You have made the list.
They're on the list of people that don't want to hear the good news. Son. Yes, we are. Thank you.
I know. I'd love it if they came by.
But to hear somebody say that, like, that was one of the funniest things I witnessed.
Well, she's talking about the Jehovah's. They came by
We were in Detroit.
and they said that, you know, that we weren't on the list of people who wanted to hear bad news.
The young guy
the
that
good
was
news.
with them went to walk up to me because I was in the driveway. And he went to walk up to me, and the elder stopped and put his hand on his shoulder. They're on the list of the people that don't want to hear the good news. And the kid looked at him, and they just kept walking like.
The thing about them that the most shocking thing they ever said to me was that flat out, he said, we don't want people who ask questions. And I was like, so you just want dumb sheep who comply? You don't want people to know what they're talking about? But he's right. They can't have people asking questions. If you start asking about 144 spots in heaven, 44,000 spots in heaven, you know, and the thing is, like, most people don't understand where that comes from.
Is there a Muslim section in that 144,000?
Well, that 144,000 has been filled up. That 144,000 was the 12 different J tribes that each had 12,000 each. Like, that was what it was.
But the Jehovah's Witnesses, how old is that? It's not that old, right?
Let's look that up.
Because, I mean, it's not as new as the Mormons, but it's not as old as...
I think it's newer than the Mormons.
No, I think it's older than the Mormons, but not by much.
All right, let's see. I didn't think we'd go this way today. Jehovah's Witness is a Christian denomination that is an outgrowth. That even sounds bad. Ew, it's an outgrowth. Ew.
That's pretty much how it feels.
An outgrowth of the Bible student movement founded by Charles Taze Russell in the 19th century, so the 1800s.
Yeah.
Guess when in the 1800s?
1881.
Exactly.
Is it?
Yes.
Nice.
The denomination is non-Trinitarian,
So they don't believe in
Malarian, or restorationist.
So yeah, they don't believe in the Holy Trinity.
Russell co-founded Zion's Watchtower Tract Society in 1881 to organize and print the movement's publications. You realize, when I said to my wife, it happened in the 1800s, when do you think it was? She had 100 fucking years, she could have said. She could have said 1830, 1842. She could have said any of that shit. Instead, based on this is what we were sort of talking about yesterday too. There's nobody here like psychic. Nobody here is predicting things. This is what we were talking about with Charles. It's about the information that you've been given. It's a culmination of things. Prior to this YouTube thing that I'm doing, my wife wouldn't have said 1881. She would have said, I don't know. But after having heard how many different things, come out of the 1880s and how much, like it's so obvious that this is a pivotal sort of time in the narrative that we're given.
Well, honestly, I'm surprised that it's that old. I thought it was going to be like in the 30s or 40s, 1930s or 40s.
Well, that's the Zion's Watchtower Tract Society. So that's not necessarily Jehovah's Witnesses yet. So we'll see. In 1881
What
to
was his name?
organize and print the movement's publications.
What was his name? Simpson?
Charles Taze, T-A-Z-E, Russell.
Russell.
Gotta love those three first names. Well, I don't know what Taze means. A leadership dispute after Russell's death resulted in several groups breaking away, with Joseph Franklin Rutherford retaining control of the Watchtower Society and its properties.
Uh-oh.
I cannot imagine. Like, what was this guy doing? What was his presentation like that people
What
were
happened
like,
to Russell?
he died?
Oh.
What happened to what were these people doing that was so convincing to people that they would uproot their families and follow this person? Like,
Because it was still God, but it wasn't as oppressive.
right, but if you know,
pray to Virgin Mary too,
but if you know like what the Bible says, and then some guy comes out and he starts telling you that he's the second coming or something, like you know that goes against the rules, right?
well, that's Joseph Smith. It doesn't sound like these guys. It sounded like they were doing like, well, let's get back to the Bible instead of what these churches.
Well, I don't know what it sounds like. We haven't gotten that far. Let's figure it out.
A Bible group.
Rutherford made significant changes, organizational and doctoral changes.
Doctrine. You changed the doctrine, eh?
Doctrinal changes, including adoption of the name Jehovah's Witnesses in 1931 to distinguish the group from other Bible student groups and symbolize a break with the legacy of Russell's traditions. Like, how did this Russell guy just come up with this shit? In 2024, Jehovah's Witnesses reported a peak membership of approximately 9 million worldwide. That's nothing. I mean, that's just nothing in comparison. I thought they had a lot more. I want to see who Charles Taze Russell is.
Then at 9 million, not now. That's the guy that did the Bible group. Yeah. And
that's Charles Taze Russell right there. He looks like a guy. I'm going to be like, you know what that guy has I'm going to listen to that guy.
But his predecessor was the other one that starts with an R. Almost sounded
Rutherford. Okay, so Charles Taze Russell, born February 16th, 1852, died October 31st, 1916. Died on Halloween. Or Pastor Russell. That was his name, Pastor Russell. Was an American Adventist minister from Philadelphia. You know, the Seventh-day Adventists. Those people are nuts. And founder of the Bible student movement. He was an early Christian Zionist. I mean, seriously, I couldn't write this any better. I couldn't, if I'm saying, oh, it's conspiracy this, conspiracy that, it's not my fault. When I go read the information I'm supposed to read, it backs that up even more.
So it sounds like Russell's like a Bible study type group, and then Rutherford
Why don't
came
you
in and
shut up
it.
and read about it so we can figure out what it sounds like.
He changed the doctrine.
Well, let's see what it says. Let's see.
Named themselves Jehovah's.
So Pastor Charles Taze Russell, or Pastor Russell, was an American Adventist minister from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and founder of the Bible student movement. He was an early Christian Zionist. Good old Zionist. In July 1879, Russell began publishing a monthly religious magazine, Zion's Watchtower and Herald of Christ's Presence. Man, Christians are just fucking goofy, man. They are just silly. Just a silly thing. And I don't think We look at it enough. We talk about it enough. We just read what's said and focus on what we want to focus on and move on. But this is in July of 1879. So, how does mass publishing take place in 1879?
How could it be 1879? It's before 1881.
That's when he began publication
How?
of the monthly religious magazine.
Oh, so he made a religious magazine before he made his little Bible movement.
Sure, sure. But what was the printing procedure back then? How did that work? And then how was the distribution handled? There there weren't any vehicles. It was just horses and buggies.
Maybe pigeons.
Like, think about, those are heavy magazines, I would assume, though.
No, they were the little, you don't remember those?
I know. I remember the Watchtowers. Yeah, they're fucking cartoons and shit. They're goofy as hell.
Well, the ones of old, like when I was at Gray Aya's, so when I was 6, 7, 1980.
So 50 years ago.
Yeah, they were, no, 40, thank you.
45.
They were thin little, like really thin, cheaply done booklets.
They still basically are.
They're a lot more modernized, for sure. And more money goes into them, for sure. They were cheap.
But just think about that. Think about the logistics. I'm always, harping on logistics and trying to get the focus on logistics. So how did this work? How did somebody get on the list? And then they're on the list. The magazine is published. It's mass produced. And then it's sent out to all of these different people all over the country. Like, how does that even work back then?
Their thing was always going door to door. So they just go door to door and give you their...
Yeah, but their thing is going door to door because they have vehicles to get to where they're going. Like, we're so modern, we just don't think about it. A mile was a mile back then.
Ours would walk from the temple. We had the temple in the corner of the street.
I get it. It's not just your thing. That's not what I'm saying. And if the Jehovah's Witness temple is on the corner of the street, yes, they can walk up and down the streets. But we're talking about across the country. All these rural areas. We're talking about what you believe 1879 looked like.
The same way the milkman did. Horse and buggy. They load up a bunch of people, park their horse and buggy, they all spill out, they all hit the...
Sure.
And go back in their buggy.
Sure.
It's the only way they could have.
I mean, the milkman thing is just, it's another one of these things where we just sort of accept it for what it is, but we don't think about the logistics of it. It just doesn't, it's so far-fetched. It's so weird. But the milkman is a government organization, I believe.
No, it was dairy farmers.
It had to be it had to have a unified hub. It couldn't just be, the dairy farmers. How are the dairy farmers? If they're dairy farmers, then what they're doing all day is dairy farming.
Yeah, Grandpa used to have a milkman come and deliver milk.
Right, but you need to have logistics in place. You cannot just, the milkman doesn't just go up to the house and, hey, you need milk? You had your specific milk needs met. But that's such a bigger thing. That's not some fringe little small ass religious cult that is somehow able to do pretty incredible things. We're talking about a time when there weren't roads everywhere, at least from what we're told. There weren't, modern day roads. Like, we're just so okay with the horse and buggy idea that we just don't think about it. But the horse and buggy idea is just nuts. It's just nuts to think about how much horse shit would have been everywhere. How many dead horses would have been everywhere. And so these Jehovah's Witnesses or Zion's Watchtower and the Christ Herald of the left-handed Pickles or whatever, I don't know. They're able to organize a publishing, publishing is difficult. And when you look up, like, it's pretty crazy to me, because I think I've talked about it before, but the linotype machine is, one of the top 3 inventions of the 1800s of all time, really, when you think about it, because the linotype is why we had print. Anything in print. Like, we just don't think about the absolute marvel that is print media and how it all came to be, in like a daily newspaper, to procure, manufacture, and distribute a daily newspaper is like, think about it if you had to do it right now. Think about if somebody said, all right, guy, we want you to distribute a magazine all across the country. Go for it. Do it. Even with all the modern day everything, I wouldn't know what to do. But to think like, okay, so they, prior to the linotype, I mean, again, we don't understand, like, how did books exist? How did they mass produce books? The linotype, being one of the greatest inventions of all time, was invented by some German clockmaker like 1884, so prior to the publication of this thing. And from the 1880s, from the invention of the linotype until digital came around, that was it. That was how everything used, that's how all newspapers, that all magazines, all print media was made using this incredible technology. This self-contained, refinery, this self-contained factory. This idea that this thing was creating liquid metal slugs that were distributed and then ran back through the machine, melted down, and then reformed. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And somebody just approaches a German clockmaker and says, we need you to do this. And he's like, okay. And you, trust me, like, you would think this is one of the greatest inventions known to man. There's probably a decent history regarding it. Nope.
Well, okay, so what we were led to believe. So, like, for example, you know how back in the day the old scrolls would have the king's mark on it. So he would take a stamp that had an engraving of his symbol, whatever, and put it in wax, and then put it on the scroll or whatever, and it would leave the stamp of his mark. So what we were told is that's how it originally was done. They would do, create a stamp by engraving, kind of, and using the underside, a piece of metal, and then...
Where are all these engravings then? Where are all of these metal plates that had to be used for the millions and millions of pages worth of books that had to exist?
Maybe it was melted down and used for other I don't know.
I mean, it's not a viable idea. And when you start looking at, like, especially when you look at old books that have, like, the illustrations all in the margins and all that shit, how did they mass produce those?
Well, I don't know how mass produced. You know, our thought of mass producing something is, oh, they produced 1 million copies. I don't think those numbers were that back then.
Maybe they weren't 1 million, but to create 100 books, 100,000 page books. Good luck with that.
Well, the Watchtower, for example, was like 3 pages. You know.
Okay.
So if you make 100 of them, you could knock that shit out in 3 days. If you had a group of people sitting there.
Yeah, you'd have to have a lot of people, and then how are you paying these people, and how are they, where is this taking place? In 1881, he co-founded Zion's Watchtower Tract Society with William Henry Conley. Gosh, so many Williams back then. Williams and Henrys and Johns as president. In 1884, the corporation was registered with Russell as president. Russell wrote many articles, books, tracts, pamphlets, and sermons totaling approximately 50,000 pages. Jesus. I mean, so 50,000 pages, right? If you were gonna over a okay, so let's say he started the thing in 1881 and he died in 1916. So that is 1881 to 1916,
1879. So he started that.
Began publishing the monthly. Okay, so 1879, so 2 extra years. So that's 21 plus 16, so that's 37. So let me see your phone for a second, please. $50,000 divided by 37 equals 1,351 pages a year. 1,351 divided by 365. He's averaging 4 pages a day. This guy is writing and producing 4 pages a day. If he did it every single day for a 37-year period, he would have to produce 4 pages every day. I mean, I write a lot. I write a lot.
And just has to write it once though, and then copy it onto other. He's actually just writing it the one time and then copying everything he's already written.
No. You didn't hear what was said. In 1884, the corporation was registered with Russell as president. Russell wrote many books, articles, tracts, pamphlets, and sermons totaling approximately 50,000 pages. That's a lot. That's 1,350 per year. That's 4 per day over a 37-year period. That sort of proficiency, that to be that prolific, that's not realistic. That's just not realistic. From 1886 to 1904, he published a 6-volume Bible study series titled Millennial Dawn, later renamed Studies in the Scriptures, nearly 20 million copies of which were printed and distributed around the world in several languages during his lifetime. So, yeah, the numbers aren't that high, are they? You see how your logical human brain answers the questions or reconciles the information you're given in a way that makes it, something that can be understood. Well, it's just, 100 copies or whatever. No. From 1886 to 1904, he published a 6-volume Bible study series. 6 volumes. What is 6 volumes? How big is this 6-volume series? Millennial Dawn Studies in the Scriptures. A series of publications intended as a Bible study aid containing 6 volumes of great importance to the history of the Bible student movement and early history of the Jehovah's Witnesses. The 7th volume was published posthumously and was written by other authors. Origin. The author of the first 6 volumes of the Studies in the Scriptures, Charles Taze Russell, reported that he did not write them, quote, through visions and dreams, nor by God's audible voice, but that he sought, quote, to bring together these long scattered fragments of truth.
So his own words. He made it up.
I mean, where would he have gotten it from?
Insult people and say God came to me and spoke through me. At least he didn't say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different level of arrogance, I guess. The first volume was written in 1886, originally entitled The Plan of the Ages, as part of a series called Millennial Dawn. It was later renamed The Divine Plan of the Ages. The name Studies in the Scriptures was adopted in limited editions around October 1904 and was more generally used from 1906. Contents. Number 1, The Divine Plan of the Ages, 1886. Interpretations of fundamental biblical topics associated with God's plan of salvation. Number 2, The Time is at Hand, 1989. 1889. Imagine the death, doom, and gloom and the, like the way Christians believe that Jesus is coming and blah, blah, blah. Imagine how much of this shit was geared towards the year 1900 is going to be. They weren't talking about in 2025, blah, 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 long after all of you are dead. They weren't saying shit like that. They were promising people that Jesus was going to come back within their lifetimes and right the wrongs and blah, blah, blah. The time is at hand. An interpretation of Bible chronology, there we go. Keys to time prophecies, the second advent of Christ, and the identification of the Antichrist. Number 3, Thy Kingdom Come, in 1891. So the first one he wrote in 1886. I mean, again, when? When was he doing this? The second one, awesome. Fuck. I'll take care of it. The second one was in 1889. The third one is 2 years later, like 3 years, 2 years, describes biblical prophecies in further detail, along with the fate of Israel. What? There was no Israel. So how are we? Is this another one of these pills that fucks up your taint? Yeah, Jardians, take this and you're going to get a taint infection. It's so weird. With the fate of Israel and information on the Great Pyramid of Giza as being built under God's direction. The section of pyramidology was influenced by the theories of Charles Piazzi Smyth, S-M-Y-T-H, I don't know if it's Smith or Smyth.
The Egyptians?
Who also helped review it.
That's funny. I thought the Egyptians were responsible for the pyramids. My bad. It's a white guy.
Isn't this like around the time the pyramids were rediscovered? Because believe it or not, the pyramids haven't been this thing that was talked about throughout history. They were rediscovered later on. So how giant fucking pyramids and the Sphinx got buried and then were you know, it's pretty weird. It's not like Egypt was an uninhabited place or anything, so got to put that away because we don't want the cat to get it.
I found out that toilet paper is toxic to cats. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
No, she didn't eat any.
Number 4, the Day of Vengeance. That vengeful God you guys love so much. Later named the Battle of Armageddon, suggests causes of the dissolution of the present order with the biblical remedy as God's kingdom. What did I just say?
I have no idea.
Suggest causes of the dissolution of the present order with the biblical remedy as God's kingdom. It didn't make any more sense the second time.
No.
Number 5, the at-one-ment, huh?
I said and one. They had basketball back then.
It's AT-ONE-MENT. At-one-ment between God and man, 1889, discusses the nature of humanity, the work of redemption, and the Holy Spirit. Number 6, 5 years later, took 5 years for this one. The New Creation, 1904, discusses the 7 days of creation found in Genesis and the duties and personal responsibilities of a Christian. Yes, this is crazy stuff. The God narrative we get is somehow worse than the exact opposite of what he is claimed to be. We are the fragments of God, aka humans, and as a whole, reality itself can change with combined will. I mean, there's no God. I'm sorry, I just don't believe in the All-Father who allows children to be raped by the main people pushing his fucking good word. And you may say, you know, whatever you want regarding that. To me, that's just a deal breaker. You know, it's 100% deal breaker. No external God. But there's no internal God. Like the arrogance of saying that we are gods and God, if I was God, I'd float around like Magneto and there would be no fucking pedophiles. They would die. You know, if I was God, I'd dinkle, dinkle, dink, all kinds of cool shit. The thing that we don't like to understand or accept is that, you know how you like step on bugs and shit all the time while you're walking and you don't even realize it? You know how you eat dead animals? Yeah, you're no different. You're not some special. You're just a creature on this planet that's smarter than the other ones, to some degree, I guess. But like, you're not a god. None of us are gods. None of us are. You know, there's no superpowers. You'd be surprised. Like even my wife, my bandmates, like we're not all on the same page. My wife and I do not agree on a lot of these things. We kind of do. But like my wife believes in shit that I need more proof of before I'm going to believe in it. And my bandmate, the same thing. You know, it was really interesting to hear Charles talking about the LGBTQ movement thing as being this creation of the system. I just cannot stand that. I cannot stand that. You know, I felt this way long before I had a gay sister, but like I look at it like I just, how you can discriminate against people because they're they're gay or they're trans. Like talking to our friend Daisy, you know, he she is trans and transitioning to I think the issue being that we live in this really closed-minded society that says you're either man or woman. So he feels that he's not a fucking typical man, that's for damn sure. So it must mean he's a woman. And instead of it being something different, instead of there being a third option, no, you're not a man, you're not a woman, you're this. But this is somebody who feels like they were born in the wrong body. And when asked about his dick, like, what do you think? Do you like your penis? Like how he was like, it's conflicting. He likes being able to pee standing up wherever he wants to. She wants to, but it doesn't feel right to her. And it's that to me is a hell. I can't imagine. Well, not all proof is physical, but emotional. No, proof is proof. Proof is proof. Like,
how do you prove that you love somebody? How do you prove that you hate somebody?
Well, your actions prove it. It's not something that
How do you feel?
Yes, but you prove you love someone by doing the things that matter. By caring about them. By helping them. By, sleeping with them, believe it or not. There's multiple ways you can show you love people. Like with my kids. My kids know that I love them because I'm there for them. What they need, they don't see me being the same person to everybody else in the world. No, they're treated differently because I love them. That's why to me, my wife says it to all these people. She'll always tell people, "Oh, I love you," and they say, "I love you," and I love you back, and I just hate it. You don't hear me saying that to anybody but them because I don't love anybody but them like that. Maybe, mother-in-law, shit like that, but random people, I don't love you. I wish the best for you. I like you, whatever it may be, but I'm not willing to die for you. Most is physical. You cannot describe a feeling accurately with words. Some feelings cannot be expressed with words. What does that have to do with it? I mean, that's just the part of the uniqueness of being a human, but that doesn't, that doesn't necessarily mean one way or another. And it's like you can find articles from the late 1800s where the prominent people of the day are bragging about them being the pinnacle of society. We are the pinnacle of society. Humanity won't we're as far as humans are going to get. They had no concept of internets and rocket ships and all that shit. Submarines, of course. Well, actually, I guess they did because, 1850s and shit, they were building submarines.
I thought it was 1600.
1620 is the first one, Cornelius Drebbel. Yeah. But that's not the one that's like...
even before the Jehovah's Witnesses. That's crazy.
It's such bullshit. I agree the I love you platonic love is kind of annoying. Why not be fully genuine? Because everybody needs it.
Different kinds of love.
Because people have that...
kids and I love you, but it's a totally different love. I love my mom. That's a totally different love.
Sure. But, random people, like...
It's not random people, it's friends. Friends.
These are random people.
Love for.
These are random people. And why would somebody need you to love them? Why isn't it, hey, I like you a bunch. You're a great person. I like you. Why isn't that enough?
What's the problem with feeling some sort of love for them? Like I said,
because I believe
love.
I believe that what I consider to be love is a special thing. It's a special thing that I don't just hand out to anybody because, we're friends or whatever. Especially in my situation.
I would have never, even if we were still talking with him, that's not something I'd say to him.
I bet you would. If he would have said it,
love.
if they said it to you, you would. If they were like, I really love you, you're great, you'd be like, I love you too. That's awesome. Thank you. Because they put you in that spot. Because what do you say in that? Oh, well, thank you. Uh-huh.
Actually, I have been told that, and oh, that's really sweet. Thanks. Yes, that's all you have to say.
Yeah, but that's not how it goes. That person afterwards wonders why you didn't say it back. But I mean, again, like this is all semantics. This is all just nonsense, really. Love, what I say love is, if I say love to some African tribesman who goes, he's not going to know what the fuck I'm talking about. Love isn't this universal concept. Love is what we of all us English speakers have agreed that the click and whistle sound that we make, love, describes this huge range of emotions. But it's just bullshit. It's just like hate. When people tell you, oh, you shouldn't hate things. Hate is just a word.
Well, to express that particular feeling.
Yeah, but it's an agreed upon sound that people know, because if you say pizza, people aren't going to be like, oh, is that and you hand them a hamburger and go, oh, this is a pizza. They're not going to go, oh, okay, this is a good pizza. They're going to be like, no, that's a burger, dude. Love is like, oh, I love ice cream. Oh, I love flying. Oh, I love my wife. Like, I love my kids. Like, we use this as this huge range. It go from all the way over here to all the way over here to describe this thing, because, I mean, I guess that's just how we've been taught to do it. But it's we are talking about feelings and all these things, and at the end of the day, you want to talk about a distraction. Well, what does love really mean? Who gives a fuck? What love means to you is different than what love means to me.
And nobody is right or wrong.
No. I say it all the time. Like, do you really think that I love my wife more than the guy in the fucking backwards ass Muslim country that, ties his woman to a tree and beats her with a 2x4 because she did something that violates God commandment of some sort or whatever? He's beating the shit out of her because he loves her, because she has disgraced God, and he's worried that God will bring down,
God's gonna hurt me because you wronged our family.
God's gonna hurt our family, our town. Like, these people are nuts. I'm not saying it's anything good. Like, if I reverse this and was talking about the man getting beat, she would have an easier time doing it because she has such a hang up on this. But that guy loves his wife. He loves her. He probably loves his wife more than I do, because I'm not willing to beat the shit out of my wife because of God, to appease God. But to say that you love your wife more than he loves his wife is not fair. He's just been taught a different kind of love. Those people that do the honor killings, where their kid violates something and they kill their own child. You think they don't love their child? They love their children. Oh, are we talking Sandy Hook here? Oh, that's a good one. I mean, it's this is much more of a, we need a one world government kind of thing. People, one of the things the system has done really, really well is it does this a lot, is convinces us that the solutions to the problems are the bad things. So when you talk about a one world government, people are like, oh my God, we can't have a one world government, blah, 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 blah. We need one.
to give one person that much power is not a good thing.
Who said it? See, you're doing the same Nick thing. Nick did this today. We were in the car, and I asked him. He said he was playing his Pokemon Go game, and I said to him, so you weren't just checking your game, you were actually playing it. And he said, well, blocks, fruits, and blah blah blah. I brought up and I said, no. Was I talking about those other two games, or was I talking about this specific game? You were talking about this specific game, and I was arguing something else. Like, he gets it. You argue the thing you can argue. You're not arguing my point.
Government, ultimately, you have a leader of.
Why? Why do you have to have a leader? Why don't you have a group of leaders? Why can't you have that?
Because somebody has to lead that group.
No, they don't. You can have multiple. You're just speaking from that perspective that you've been given, that there has to be one leader, and there doesn't.
There's always a chairman of the board. Even your 7 Supreme Court or 9, whatever it is. They're still like the Supreme Court justice.
No, they're all equal.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
There's the one that speaks on behalf of all of them.
They might be the speaker, but that's it. That doesn't make them the leader.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't. That just means they're probably the best of the speakers. They just have the best oration abilities. But to sit here and say that, we would have to have one leader, one this and that, we wouldn't. Just because you draw a bunch of invisible lines. I mean, we already have a one world government. To think that we don't is foolish. Just look at what they did with COVID. That should show you that there's a one world government, but I don't know if it does. But to have a one world government where everyone is held to the same standards, where you can't just say, oh, I crossed over an invisible line and now I can be killed for being gay. Or now I'm a woman, so I crossed over this invisible line, now I'm not allowed to drive anymore. Oh, you cross over this invisible line, so now they're allowed to dump toxic waste into the water because their government doesn't have regulations against it. This is you can have individual groups and individual ideas and all that shit. Sure, people can
abide by the same exact laws. What's the point of having individual groups?
Because individual groups are going to have individual likes and all that shit. But that doesn't mean that one group is allowed to kill other people, but you could say our group, our team does this, our whatever, you can still do that. But when it comes down to the fundamental laws, the rights to life that everyone, those should all be the same. We should all have the right to life, to be able to speak our minds, to be able to, I have zero problem with anyone saying anything. I'm glad the Jays talk about their superiority and all that shit. Identify them. Go ahead, do that. Free speech is a really important thing, and it doesn't just, doesn't just fit with what you like.
You'd have to get rid of religion for that to work.
Absolutely.
And that's not going to happen.
I mean, you are the old guard. You are. I've always said you have that weird 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the present sort of mentality.
No, I'm realistic about it. You are not going to get all the Bible thumpers, all the Muslims, all the Buddhists to forget about religion. That's not going to happen.
We got them to do it.
We can't get rid of racism. Are you crazy?
We absolutely could get rid of racism if we wanted to. That you're talking about a broken system. In the broken system, yes, things can't work that way. When people aren't educated and told the truth from birth, then yeah, it's difficult. You're not going to change a lot of the old heads' minds, but guess what? They die.
The old heads teach the new heads and program and influence and
They can. They don't necessarily. You know, if I'm a big believer in the idea that your age doesn't necessarily matter in that regard. Just because you're older than me doesn't mean you're smarter than me. You may have more experiences than I have, but that doesn't mean you're smarter than me.
You also are assuming that most people are as smart as you.
No, not.
Or,
Not even close.
most people are really fucking stupid.
I know.
Most people don't have the courage.
Most
and
people are
willpower
followers.
that you do to stand against the
Whatever.
You know,
That's not. But those
it
these.
takes those things to break away and do what you do.
It to be at the forefront of it, to be a leader of it, yes. But
Even believe it.
oh my God. But considering most people are followers, if the leaders are saying, well, we go this way, if the leaders say, well, you got to put up partitions of glass because that will keep you safe from the COVID germs. I mean, you know, according to history, for all of history up until the 1880s, people believed that miasma was the thing that got people sick. That sickness was associated with what bad air, with the environment. The environment got you sick because you were breathing in these toxic substances and whatnot. In the 1880s, they decided that it was going to be germs now. There are invisible, super intelligent germs that invade your body. That we are under a constant assault from invaders. And you can see when you step back how that mindset influences other things as well. Getting you thinking you're under invasion all the time. That's programming you to accept that concept that the invisible invaders are doing it, and we're like, okay. So the physical version of it, it won't be as shocking. They're seasoning you. But to think that that minds can't be changed, and of course they can. That's a great example of it. When the system gets behind something, then that's what happens. When truth comes out, then that's what happens. And of course there's going to be strays. Of course there's going to be resistance to it. I don't think that I can flip a switch and make life better for me, and it's that. Everything will change, religion will be gone, blah, 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 blah. No. But we can be the pebbles that get the avalanche started. That my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, that they would live in a better world, yeah. But that's how I look at things. Most of you don't look at things unless it's personal. Unless you have personal stake in it, you apparently don't care. And that shows you how fucked up we are. And what you don't understand is, even if you look at it from your own personal standpoint, like I always talk about, true selfishness, right? True selfishness is me wanting myself, my wife, and my children to live the happiest, healthiest, safest lives they can possibly live. And I understand that the only way that can ever happen is if everyone else is living the happiest, healthiest, safest lives they can live. Because as long as there are people out there struggling, as long as there are people out there not eating, as long as there are people out there being brainwashed to believe in Sky Daddy this or Sky Daddy that, that puts myself, my wife, and my children in danger. I want your life to be just as good as mine. I don't think that if I have a TV that you can't afford, that makes my TV watching experience better. If we all had the same TV, then that wouldn't affect me. I mean, I'd be like, great, I hope you enjoy the same TV I get to watch. But most of us aren't, we're so close-minded, and we're so, we've been influenced, we all used to believe it took a village. You know, we believe all kinds of crazy shit because they tell us to. You have literally no reason to believe in God. You have no legitimate, real life reason why you believe in God. I ask people all the time, what is your reason for believing in it? What is your proof? What is your evidence? And you literally have nothing. You can't say anything. It's just programming. You were told at a young age that you need to believe this. You were chastised anytime you asked questions or spoke against it or thought you know for yourself. And eventually you just you saw how other people were treated for doing the same thing. You've seen how people treat people like me. And you go, well shit, I don't want to deal with that. And so wait, I can either be an outcast and you know be ostracized by the community and people are allowed to make fun of me, people are allowed to attack me, or I can just say I go with the flow and then when I die I get to go to heaven. Oh, okay, I'll do that.
Well, the outcast lives a horrible life, a martyred life, if you will. Maybe they are making it better for their grandkids, but their life fucking is horrible.
My life is horrible because of the decisions I made, especially prior to figuring things out.
Doing what you do has greatly affected us.
While I was still programmed to chase my mother and dysfunctional bullshit and all that stuff, my life is affected by like it's impossible to look at my situation, my wife, my bandmate, the people that are closest to me, and not see that the same sort of dysfunctional issues plague all of those same people. The most important people in the world to me are very similar to my family. And it shows you that the programming that I was given and received, despite it not being the best way of thinking or way to do things, it was the dysfunction I was raised in. So it was the dysfunction, that negative dysfunction that I found comfort in. As fucked up as it is, you find that same situation. And what it really is the kid in you trying to fix it. Trying to subconsciously fix your parents by reliving their situation and showing that if you were in that situation, you would have made different choices. And, it's all about, I mean, if I had my same mentality that I have now, I would not be in the same situation that I'm in. I found it easy not to believe in God. I found it much harder to truly believe. I chose the harder path because I have found the harder way to lead me to more growth. Do you realize what a stupid fucking response that is? So I guess you walk to work every day. Well, you don't work. You're on my feed. But if you want to go to the grocery store or whatever, instead of driving there, which would be easier, and you would be able to load your groceries into the car. No, you walk your ass to the store and then carry all of your groceries back home because that leads to more growth. That harder path leads you to more growth, right? You make it harder on yourself, right? Well, shit, you might as well live outside, right? Why the fuck do you live inside? Why are you on a cell phone right now saying this kind of dumb shit when it's, that's the easier path? What you should be doing is walking your ass over to my house and then telling me in person to person, because that's the harder path and that leads to growth. Yes, if you work harder for your stuff, the stuff would mean more to you. Yeah, that's not the same that's not the same thing. That's not, you're just saying stupidity. And no, I'm straw manning now. Yes, I'm straw manning. Isn't it funny? This is the same thing that always happens, right? People say shit like, well, you say you want people's opinions, But then when they say something, you blah, blah. Well, I'm not going to just believe what you say, especially if you say something stupid. I chose the harder path because this is what his response was, or her response, whatever, to why they believe in God. They chose to believe, they found it easy to not believe in God, but they thought, it's really easy to not believe in this. So I'm going to say I believe in it because it's harder and it leads to more growth. That's the stupidity that I'm given. And then when I make the analogy about going to the grocery store and carry, because, if you were to walk your ass to the grocery store and then have to carry your leg muscles, your arm muscles, your lungs, you'd been walking outside and breathing hard and getting that fresh air, and you wouldn't be, burning fossil fuels in your car, which essentially, create pollution that you breathe in and all that shit. You're just stupid. That's just a stupid thing to say. How about this question? Does growth occur without friction, strife, or effort? Of course it does. How? See, this is that stupidity that you've been programmed with. You're programmed to believe that you need trials and tribulations to blah, 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 blah. No, you don't. You can grow without suffering. I didn't suffer some, meat-ridden, I ate meat and I had these horrible issues and a doctor told me it's because of the meat you're eating, so then you should stop. That's not what happened. I stopped eating meat because I was like, hey, this is kind of gross. Having children, it wasn't like because it makes it so much harder that I love them more. That's stupid. If anything, that makes it harder to do. All the fucking... I personally don't think anybody should have children. I think it's a crazy thing to do. I don't want that heartache. I don't want to have to worry about my kids. Because we live in a system where I could get a knock on the door and police are there and I don't know, and I know something's wrong. That's not a growth that I want to go through. Why would I ever want anything to do with that growth? According to you. And you put words in their mouth for carrying more groceries, about carrying more groceries. I put words in, whose mouth did I put words in? I was giving you an example. Nobody else brought up the groceries. I did. Like, this is exactly what I'm saying. Out of the stupidity that we have, and out of the bot perspective that they have to argue with everything I say, this is the best they can come up with. Why is it every time I ask somebody why they believe in God, they say just such stupid, crazy shit? How come nobody ever says, well, because I was in this situation and I prayed and immediately the thing that I needed showed up out of nowhere. I desperately needed a car, so I prayed, and then later on that day, somebody just showed up and was like, hey, I want to give you a car. Saying that you believe anything because it's a harder choice. I could believe the easier thing that makes sense and doesn't require faith and all this other crazy bullshit, but I'm going to choose to believe the other one because it's harder. I didn't make that statement. Those are the dumb words that were given to me. You can no, not trials, but discomfort. Again, why do you believe that? How stupid have you been made that you think you need to experience discomfort or negativity to grow? Like, that just shows you what a horrible human being you are. Right? That you have to have a negative before you go, like, you see the stove is blazing hot. And you're going, should I touch that? Should I touch that stove?
However, the growth is once you've touched the stove and know that it's hot, it's going to burn you, you won't do it again.
Why would you do it in the first place?
Because people make bad decisions all the time, not realizing what it will.
No. If you see that the stove is blazing red hot, you know that thing is hot. Why would you have to touch that shit and fuck your shit up before you go, maybe I shouldn't touch that again? How many times do you need to touch it? Is it just the once? Then you go, okay, well, I experienced it now. I had my personal story, so now I can believe it. I can't take the word of other people who have touched the stove. I can't apply common sense knowing that, hot things burn. Nope. Every time I come across a new stove and the design is, I'm like, that one doesn't look like the other stove. Is this one hot? Oh, God, yeah. Oh, okay.
Kids. All kids. Nathan, don't touch the light bulb. He's going to do it.
That's 2 years old, doesn't know any better. I'm not comparing my mentality to that of a 2-year-old.
Don't do that. You're going to get hurt.
Okay, but that's a 2-year-old.
I said we're still saying that type of shit to our kids.
Okay, but they're teenagers. They're kids. As adults, why do we still need to touch the stove?
I mean, to say that I
he answered personal growth and
that's stupid.
He answered personal growth from a challenge of having to make sense of a harder belief faith than you went all groceries. Are you really that dumb that you don't understand what an analogy is? Like, see, this is why I stopped even talking to these idiots. These are the people who refuse, like, as far as growth goes, right? These are the people who refuse to make videos proving who they are, proving that they're a real person. Make a video telling me how stupid I am, just 1 minute, and then send it to me. And then because you're so arrogant and stupid, you think you just want people to make videos that are going to go viral. You think that you can make viral videos, then you can just delete it after I see it. But the fact that I actually make a real world analogy to combat your dumb faith argument, and that's the problem.
From tragedy, typically great growth comes from. But to say that
bullshit. Do you know how many people have tragedy and that shuts them down? I know personally. I know a woman who has been assaulted, and because of that, that's the reason for everything negative. No growth comes from that. Things have just gotten worse. They didn't go, oh, well, I got assaulted, but I'm going to show the world and I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to be the best that I can be. And no, I got assaulted, so I can't be held responsible. Don't say anything to me I don't like, because I can't, that's bullshit. That's just bullshit. So many people get raped and it fucks their whole world up. They can't have good relationships. They can't make it. It just fucks them up. What kind of dumbass nonsense is like, oh, well, some real great growth is going to come out of that? What growth could possibly come out of that? How could you be any bit better for having been raped? And if you say, well, then you have an idea, a perspective that you can relate to the people that have been, well, then you're a piece of shit.
You're smarter, you're more observant, you're more careful, you're stronger.
Not true.
It is true.
It's not true. You are, if it takes you being assaulted before you're careful enough to not be in that situation, then that's stupidity coming through. You were being stupid before. Now, if that's your choice for growth, then I guess, again, if you need something negative like that to tell you to be more careful, then I that's on you. I don't know. I've never needed to be, raped and all that shit to know that I shouldn't, put myself in a really bad situation. I shouldn't get super drunk and then go walk around downtown. I know that I have never been robbed. I've never been raped, none of that shit. But I know that I probably shouldn't do that. You know, it doesn't require that. And I guarantee if that happened to me, I wouldn't be some better person because of it. This is why I choose to believe in God. It was harder for me to do that than the latter. See, that's just a stupid concept. That's what. No, say it, because they're saying how smart you are.
I
so
was trying to say it. I was
No,
trying to
but
say
say-
I can understand that growth comes from tragedy, but to say that you believe in God because it's harder and will allow you to grow because it's harder is dumb.
Right, it's dumb. You're being dumb. And that's the thing. You can't make a reasonable, decent argument. You have to make stupid arguments to cover for your stupid belief structure. Of course you're going to say something stupid when it comes to why you believe in God, because it's stupid. It's a stupid idea. It's a stupid thing. You know, why do I believe in the stove being hot? Because it's red hot.
And technically, it's easier to believe in God.
Fuck
than
yeah.
not to.
Fuck yeah, it is.
You know, it might be harder learning all the scriptures and like doing the physical learning of it all. But once you learn it, it's easier to believe in God and put something in a higher power's hands.
Or to have your excuse. That's
know
the
it's
biggest
all
one.
on you.
That's the biggest one. It's much easier to be like, oh well, the devil did it. The devil made me do these bad things. It wasn't me and my own personal shit and me being a shitty person and me, you know, making bad choices or selfish choices or whatever it is. No, it was the devil. Oh, it was God's plan. It was part of God's plan. So, yeah, that's a lot easier than reconciling the truth and who you are and your impact and your contribution to whatever it is. My wife, she just said, ha, your wife is so much smarter. Right, but she thinks you're stupid. She's not agreeing with you. Does that make her dumb now? Well, our bodies are drawn to sin. We can't help ourselves. Man, that seems like a terrible design by the creator, doesn't it?
Okay, so who?
What kind of shitty God would do that to you?
Man wrote the Bible. Man decided what sins were. Just like we decided what our Constitution was going to be, man decided what the 10 Commandments were. And what constitutes sin. Now, common sense tells us, don't kill other people. But, you know, and then we say, well, it's a cardinal sin in the Bible. Okay, well, man wrote that.
Well,
and that one is common sense.
But then there's the don't covet thy neighbor's goods. So when you go to your neighbor's house and you're like, man, your TV is awesome. What a great picture. What great sound. Oh, man. Well, I can't say I want a TV like that because I don't want to covet thy goods now. I don't want to think that I should have the same things you have. What clownish nonsense. How about in the gym? Discomfort is the effort. Sweat. Yeah, that's
no pain, no gain.
Right. That's not the same thing.
There should not be pains in a spiritual belief. It shouldn't be painful.
The idea of the physical growth, and that's carrying the groceries. Why aren't you carrying the groceries? Why aren't you walking to the grocery store? That's sweat. That's pain. That's growth as far as you're concerned. You just don't like the fact that I can blow your whole fucking argument away with some stupid ass analogy. That's what it comes down to. Don't have to be your moronic example, right? Because you can't. It's a moronic example because you can't best it. You can't come up with a reason why I'm wrong, so it's bad. Why do people make the same sins over and over again? What do you mean? They're sins. Like what do you? The whole idea of a sin is stupid. And when you look at what sins are, it's clearly a control mechanism. It's clearly a way for the system to separate itself from us. You're not supposed to want the same thing the king has. You're not supposed to want the same thing the clergy has. You're not supposed to want that same freedom,
Or
that
think you deserve it.
or think you deserve it. Right. You're not supposed to want that. The whole idea of sins and all that shit, it's stupid. And most of the stuff that are sinful is like good shit. You know, a lot of it's good shit. But it's all about controlling stupid people.
Well, and it didn't apply to the kings. You know, they say don't kill your fellow man, but the king ordered plenty of people to be killed.
Well, and the church sold what were they called? Where you could buy, you could pay for your sins and being removed. You could do it in advance if you wanted to. I forgot what it's called, but your wife drew equivalence to you and a 2-year-old. Yes, yes. She was making an example, and actually, she was talking about you. You can make an example of carrying groceries is growth. Like, again, this is when I stop reading this person's comments because it's like stupid.
Carry your groceries, your arms are going to get stronger over time. Sure.
Your arms are going to get stronger. Your legs are going to get stronger. Your lungs are going to get stronger. You're going to appreciate those groceries a lot more because you had to go through some tribulations to get them home. I mean, it's just stupid. You know, it's part of that making you accept that your life isn't good enough. Well, of course, our system could make it so we all lived a great life, happy, free, no one having to work and all these other things. But then where would the growth be? This person literally says you can't grow as a human being unless you're going through something negative. What kind of stupid shit is that? Difficulties always. Now Sassa said difficulties always equal growth. Like, this is a great example. The reason why I do keep reading it is because I love it. Because it's the prime example of people arguing what they can argue. They're not going to argue the point being made. Like how I address the comments and then whatever it is, they can't do the exact same thing. So they start arguing bullshit concepts that whatever they feel, you need trials and tribulations, but the grocery store thing, like, it's stupid. Guys cooking you right now, though, you need to put the pipe down. Why does it have to be something violent and painful? Who said anything about violent and painful? But that's a part of negativity, right? That's a part of the trials and tribulations that lead to growth. Look, I don't believe in God. Shut up. When the king speaks, you listen. Exactly. There you go. But if he expanded his mind by working out a more difficult narrative, why should we tear him up? He expanded his mind. Like, why? There was a dumbass came on here the other day and said something similar. Like, I was talking about Virginia Giuffre and how that whole story's bullshit. And the person was like, see, they have you distracted. You're distracted because you're reading about what's going on. You need Jesus. Like, what? That's not your concept. That's something that you're supposed to believe, and you get criticized and ostracized for not believing it. That is the ultimate sheep control scheme. That is you being distracted. And the idea that, again, oh, well, I know there's this bad stuff happening, but that's God's plan to teach us something. Like, that is just insanity. I just need to ignore the haters. Oh, for sure. For sure. But the problem being, a lot of times if I don't, it's that I'm scared, or You know, sometimes they say shit that other people would say. So I do want to address some of those things. But like it to me it's evidence. You know, people are always asking for evidence. And they don't want to see it when it's in front of them. You know, the fact that I ask a simple question like why does anybody believe in God? And the response is because it's easier not to, and I chose the harder path for more growth. That just shows you how stupid they are. And then the idea that somebody that says, I don't believe in God, is arguing for the person that said that, just because they're here to argue, that just says everything. So there are reasons for it. Repentance was the word, I believe. No, not repentance. No, the church used to sell. What the fuck were they called? I don't want to lose this page. Can I see your phone for a second, please? Church selling sin removal. The first thing that pops up, the Catholic Church sold my child. The scandal of children sold by the church breaks out. What the fuck is this? Oh, sun removal. That's why it's popping up. That's weird. The practice of selling indulgences, a way to reduce or eliminate the punishment for sins in the Catholic Church, was a common practice in the Middle Ages, but is not currently practiced by the Catholic Church. Yes, the selling of indulgences.
Selling of indulgences.
Yep. Purpose. Indulgences were initially granted by the church as a way to reduce the severity of penance imposed for sins.
Indulgences.
Selling indulgences, yes. Control scheme, that's all it is. It's about controlling the people into thinking that the shit that they have, the shit that they're given, is all that they deserve. They don't deserve to be on the same level as those with the blue blood, those born into favoritism, those who can afford to buy indulgences. You know, it's all about, and religion is basically just the foundation for, you know, governmental control. If at a young age you're taught to accept authority, even if it doesn't make sense, you know, oh yes, you should love thy neighbor and blah blah blah. Don't give that homeless man money. He's a dirty homeless man. Don't you talk to him. You know, if you're taught at a young age to accept an authority that don't make no sense, then when you grow up and the authority is telling the tangible authority, the government is telling you shit that don't make no sense, you're already pre-programmed to accept it. You've aligned yourself with this system, and now because you're aligned with the system, you will do as the system says. I just understood what Sassa was saying. Oh, no, you're not. You didn't understand what she was. You know what a stupid thing? Now you're just desperately stupid. You think they control rookie with soul augmentation drones or trained physical warriors or psychic warriors? Ignore the rookie part. Yeah. What? I think they control us through lots of shit. But the foundation for so much of it is religion. You know, you don't see atheists out there who are, like, I'm an atheist, but I believe in my country wholeheartedly. Blah, blah, blah. You don't see that. The people that are atheists generally are the people who question everything. And it's been proven time and time again that people that grow religious have a harder time distinguishing between reality and fiction. You know, they have a hard time, and they're more likely to accept nonsense as long as it comes from an authority. That's what religion teaches us to do, is to accept control of an authority. I mean, think about how if every Christian believed that the harder path is the way to go, then wouldn't that make more sense as to why shit's so fucked up? Because people just accept it and say, oh, well, this must be one of these tests. God must be testing me. You understand that every single one of the My 600-Pound Lifers are religious. Every single one of them talks about God, this and that, blah, 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 blah. And, and it's like, so you believe in this bullshit and you think your God would want you to be that fat piece of shit that can't take care of themselves and uses everybody and lies all the time. And I mean, to me, the 600-pounders are just the worst of the worst people. They are such horrible people, and it doesn't get called out enough. You know, if you're sitting in front of your TV while your fucking child, your 12, 13, 15, whatever your old person is making your 12 eggs and pack of bacon and pancakes so you can have your meal in your chair, and they bring it to you, and then they take the other kid to school and they do this. And I mean, these are horrible people. All they ever do is lie. It's extremely off-putting. I wholeheartedly agree. It's the thing is, right now, there is a fucking genocide taking place. God's chosen people are committing genocide. And the fucked up part is, so many of you think, well, they're Muslims, so, And at the end of the day, a lot of them are actually Christian. There's a lot of Christians in Gaza. But I guess they must not be praying as hard as you. Their eyes aren't closed as much as yours are, whatever it may be. The church of all if I say to you pedophile, and I ask you for the first word that comes to your mind, you get 5 of the first words that come to your mind. If you're honest, priest is going to be one of those words that comes right up. Those 2 words go together. And that just shouldn't be a thing. It should not, and then when you look into it, and you look into the church's history in raping children, they have a significant history of it, and a significant history of covering it up, of protecting the abuser, of shaming the victim. Like what part of any of that makes sense? Why would anyone choose to believe in such a horrible thing? I guarantee if you grew up atheist and you weren't forced into believing that bullshit from a young age, and you had life experience or whatever it is, and then you were presented with, oh yeah, by the way, there's a God and this is the church, and yeah, they rape, you would have an issue with it. You wouldn't just accept it. They have to get you at a young age. Or, again, the born-again Christians, they're always... A born-again Christian is a Christian who did a bunch of shit that they weren't supposed to do, and then decided that they were going to stop doing that shit. But they still believed in it. You don't have atheists out there that convert. I know there are people that claim to be that way, like dumbass Anomaly. Anomaly with his millions of followers and his Fox News correspondent status. He made a video.
Probably wears this shirt. My friend Teresa took it in the store the other day.
Yeah. He made a video when I first discovered Anomaly. One of the characters on my feed, do you think it's some kind of mind virus? No, just programming. One of my longtime viewers, this is years ago, sent me a video of Anomaly talking about the 1976 swine flu vaccination program. And you know, this was shortly after COVID, and he said, looks like he's been watching your videos. Because nobody else I knew was talking about the 76 swine flu, so I talked about that. The 76 swine flu vaccination program. And the 60 Minutes interview, the 60 Minutes segment where they interviewed Dr. David Sensor, and the guy flat out said that there were no cases of it. They vaccinated 46 million Americans, countless people around the world for something that didn't exist. And so I didn't even watch the video. I was just kind of like, I was looking at it, and the video has 500,000 views on it and a bunch of shares and I'm thinking, why isn't this guy getting if he's saying the same things I'm saying, then why isn't he getting the same treatment I'm getting? So I went to his page, and of course, whenever you see that kind of shit, like my immediate thought is always, they probably push Jesus. If a truther is allowed to have a large platform, it's because at the end of the day, his solution is that Jesus needs to come fix it for us. We need a savior. We're not the saviors. We need the savior. And so when I get to his page, and I see, wow, at the time he had like 2.3 million following and all this other shit. That's the only thing I could think, is that he must be either an atheist, knowing or unknowing. And it at the time when I went there, it was his most viewed video was at the top of the feed. And it was titled, Why I Believe in Jesus. And it was only like a 3-minute video or something like that. So I was like, all right, let me check this out. So I watched the video, and he starts out by saying, I used to be an atheist. I was the guy that would make fun of Christians, and, I would point things out and all that. But then, he doesn't actually tell you what if you're an atheist, and it's because you see, not because God didn't answer your prayers, but because you see that it's fucking stupid. It would have to take a pretty significant event for you to become a Christian. You don't just say, oh, well, maybe I changed my mind. It doesn't work that way. For anything to change my mind would have to be pretty fucking significant. So Anomaly is talking about how he used to be this way, and he would make fun of the Christians, and he would say all kinds of shit, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, but then it sort of dawned on him, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And I was like, you're comparing faith, God, Jesus, all that bullshit, to chicken and egg situation? And his basic argument was that something can't come from nothing. And he even mentions that, I know people will say, well, where did God come from? But he just skips right over that. He mentions it, which then programs his audience to think he actually dealt with it. But he doesn't deal with that part. That's one of those things that Christians never want to talk. Christians will say, oh, well, there was always God. Yeah, there was always God. Yet something like the Big Bang is stupid, because how does something come from nothing? what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like stupid. So everything in the world, everything in existence has to come from something except for God. Boy, that's convenient. So then he talks about how beautiful sunsets are, and he shows a picture of like a shell, a snail shell cut in half, and the precision of the snail shell. And that's his basic arguments, is that, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Something can't come from nothing, and nature is too beautiful for it to be man-made. And that's why he believes in Jesus, God, the church. Like, it's just fucking insanity. They keep getting away with it because they've programmed us to attack. Whenever somebody doesn't like like you're seeing it everywhere, especially when it comes to these Jays in Israel and shit. No Jays, no Israelis, none of them ever say, okay, hey, what issues do you have with what we're doing? Let's talk about it, and I'm going to hopefully answer your questions for you. That is never the case. The things that the Jays and the Israelis say is that you dumb goyim should not be talking about it. That's it. That's the end of the conversation. You know? They have two arguments. The first argument the Jays always make is that it's in the Bible. And then when you say, well, I don't necessarily believe in that shit, they go, oh, well, then that's anti-Semitism. You're anti-Semitic. That's anti-Semitism. And that's all it is. You have to go back to your poultry husbandry. See ya. Oh, you're a husband to chickens? Poultry. Oh, I'm hilarious. Stepped away for an appointment. Growing from studying theology is laughable, but soul-trapped mind control drones doesn't warrant an eyebrow raise. Clearly, this content isn't for me. I'll block myself. Look at that. Look at the coward. The coward. Well, I can't actually make any reasonable arguments, and so you're gonna block me. You're gonna block me because I block people all the time, right? There's one rule. Don't use pedo stuff. Don't use pedo code. Don't fly pedo flags. You can say anything you want. But I'm going to block the guy because he can't make a reasonable argument. Look at this cowardly bullshit. That's what you'll see time and time again. Because the foundation of your belief is stupid. Everything that comes out of that will be stupid. It can't be anything but. And that, I don't understand why that doesn't wake more people up, man. How does that not? Like, the fact that there's no good arguments, right? There's nothing good that somebody can say that makes any of it realistic or tangible. It's all just fake bullshit that requires faith. And that's the same thing as like with everything else. People are just programmed to believe the dumbest shit, and then they're programmed to either, like most people do the attacking, so that when they start to question shit, they're going to think that somebody's going to attack them the way they attack other people. And it's just this incredible self-policing mechanism that they've put in place. The PC movement, no one has benefited more from the PC movement than the Jays. Women still get discriminated against. People of color still get discriminated against. Other religions and all that still get discriminated against. There's only one group that has emerged from all of it that is basically untouchable. And then when it comes to your Christian beliefs, the lack of understanding. Like, you don't know where that shit comes from. Seriously, I don't even get it. You must not read your Bible. You know, the Bible is a J book, starring J's. They refer to the Gentiles time and time again, but it's a J book. It's bullshit. It's all just bullshit. You know, the characters are all J's, and I mean, even this bullshit here. You know, the king, thy kingdom come describes biblical prophecies in further detail, along with the fate of Israel and information on the Great Pyramid of Giza being built under God's direction. Everything always comes back to Israel. Everything always comes back to, well, as long as you understand your place in the hierarchy. Like, it's all just such insanity. And the fact that there's no tangible anything, like, nobody makes any videos, nobody does anything to show you why you should do this and why someone like me is wrong. How come religious people don't look at it as a, you know, as their charge? I mean, they're charged in their Bible. It doesn't tell you to seek out like-minded people and then stroke each other off. It tells you to find people like me and try to convince us otherwise. And yet, just like there's no Jays that come in here and try to, you know, explain what I'm getting wrong or explain my misconceptions or whatever, same thing happens with the Christians. There's no biblical scholars that come through here. Why aren't they more confident in what they do? Why aren't they more confident in what they believe? You know, if I were to walk into any church and be like, "Hey, everybody, I don't believe in this stuff, and I'd like to tell you why," and have you debunk everything I'm saying and bring me into the fold, that is not going to happen. They're going to attack me. You know, nothing makes a Christian want to fight more than you not believing in what they believe. And they will get physical quickly, which isn't what you're supposed to do, but then it kind of is. And I mean, the whole thou shalt not kill, it's like, did they read the Bible? Because the Bible is full of death, full of killing. But, you know, you also, whenever you hear somebody talking about the Bible, they're generally like misquoting it or misrepresenting what it says. All of the people out there that use the Bible to justify their bigotry when it comes to gay, trans people, whatever, you know, they always point to Sodom and Gomorrah. And I just don't think they have read Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, somebody must have told you something and then it stuck with you and you went with that argument or whatever. But if you read Sodom and Gomorrah, I read it to my kids and they were looking at me like, are you, like, this isn't like the real Bible that people believe. This is some other weird Bible that you're using to make it sound stupid, right? This isn't what people believe. Well, yeah, this is what people believe, and they use it to justify their bigotry and hatred. You know, not a single person that talks Sodom and Gomorrah is like, yeah, incest is wrong. Child rape is wrong. You know, it's just stupidity across the board. I've asked people time and time again to give me biblical stuff that I can read that's going to help me understand the narrative better.
Did you finish the Jehovah's story?
No, I didn't.
I wonder if the Mormons came from Jehovah's, like, you know, if they had to do that hop skip from Catholicism to Jehovah's.
No, Jehovah's Witnesses or
Joseph Smith, right? But was he along the lines of like the Jehovah believers? I mean, he had to have been.
Well, no, I mean, he was a charlatan. He had, before he created this bullshit. And again, you have to think, like, what did this man do or say that
Right.
convinced so many people to drop their Protestants, because Protestants were pretty big back then, more than likely Protestant beliefs, and join him, and then follow his ass across the country to some unknown place that they were just going to discover.
And there's more Mormons today than there are Jehovah's. So they started later and expanded. I mean,
No, they didn't start later. Jehovah's started. Joseph
Before.
Smith is
well after Jehovah's.
no.
Hell yes, he is. He was not 1881.
Yeah. Mormons are a religious and cultural group related to Mormonism, the principal branch of the Latter-day Saints movement started by Joseph Smith in upstate New York during the 1820s.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. But to think that, like, that's how that worked. That again, in the 1840s, what was so what he did was, he was this charlatan, this scam artist. He had served time because he told people he could find water for them using a peepstone, and charged people, and then didn't deliver, and was served time for it. But one day he was sitting in his house, and the angel Moroni appeared before him, gave him some, quote, magic glasses that allowed him to that he could put on so he could translate these plates that were supposedly buried right near him in upstate New York, where he went and found the plates.
All the gods came in through Ellis Island too.
Found the plates, deciphered them to, I believe, his wife or one of his wives or something. But he deciphered the plates that were full of Mormon, or were full of Illuminati type of symbolism, Freemasonry bullshit, all that stuff. These golden plates that Jesus had buried for him to find. He deciphered them, wrote it down, and then destroyed the plates, because that's what he was supposed to do. So no one actually ever saw these magic plates. And, and then he somehow got a whole shit ton of people to just uproot from upstate New York, and in 1840s travel their way across the fucking country into Utah, where they blah 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 blah.
This shit's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's no crazier than anything else.
Well, at least the Jehovah's had a basis to, they had some leverage.
How?
Joseph Smith was, believe in me, whereas the Jehovah's are, you believe in God already. You can still believe in God. We believe in God.
I guarantee
the story's a little different.
I guarantee Pastor Russell lived a very privileged life.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right. And was
See
worshipped.
that reporter did an interview with one of the big, not Joel Osteen, but the other one, Pat. Was it Pat something? No. One of the big evangelists. She did an interview and she asked him those questions like, would Jesus approve you living this life of luxury? And he's like,
oh yeah,
oh,
no.
it's
Jesus wants me to have the plane so I can give the ministry to people all around the world.
Oh my God. And he was like,
now, that's an old video. Yeah, that's an old video. That's what's his name? Not Pat Robertson, the other one.
Yeah, what's his name?
Whatever. One of the bigger ones.
But yeah, they yes, the preachers should have a life of luxury. They're doing God's work.
Well, and they say things like, the people want to see me in these $1,000 suits. Yes. They wouldn't want to see me in regular clothes. They wouldn't want to see me in Coach class. They want to see me flying first class. That's what they expect from someone in my position. I mean, it's all just bullshit. And what's irritating is like I could be a very, very rich and powerful man if I decided to be a televangelist. The things that I do well translate into televangelism extremely well. And I could sell Jesus. Like if it was all about me just getting attention and me just, benefiting me, then we'd be selling you guys Jesus left and right. Joel Osteen doesn't even preach the Bible. He preaches his own version of it. He lives a great fucking life. But see,
he calls it the translation.
Yeah, but at the same time,
make it easier for you.
The idea that you would be mad at Joel Osteen, but not the Vatican, where everything, they have golden toilets and shit like that. Like, Joel Osteen's wealth may be tremendous compared to you, but compared to the Catholic Church, to the Vatican, it's pennies.
That's a tribute for God. That's like his offering are these gorgeous, gold adorned items. That's different. That's not given to a man. That's given to the church, the altar for God himself. So that's acceptable. Whereas Joel Osteen, it goes straight to him, in his bank account, in his mouth, to his kids. So
well, yeah, but still, I mean, there's no difference. I mean, so the church is this mega organization that could really help people. Like, there's a story that a few years ago where everybody made this big deal because this woman gave birth on the Vatican steps. And the church took her in and set her up. They negate the fact, or they forget to mention the fact that she had been there for weeks begging for help, and she was on the steps on the outside gates because they wouldn't let her in. And then once she had the baby, and everybody was like, "Oh, what's the church?" They had to be like, "Well, shit, now we got to help her." But they don't give a shit. The church could absolutely fix all the problems in the world pretty easily, financially at least. Could eliminate homelessness, could eliminate hunger. They could do all of that shit very, very easily.
Isn't that what the church is supposed to do? Aren't they charged with protecting the less fortunate?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that's sort of the spin that they give us. But I don't think that's what it is. I mean, I think the church works exactly the way it's supposed to. That's why they only want, men who can override their urges to be with women. You're supposed to be a virgin, like just the whole concept of I'm supposed to listen to a virgin who has never had to pay their own bills or deal with any sort of life issues. I'm supposed to listen to you about how I should live my life? About how I should handle things in my marriage? What the fuck could a clergy possibly tell you about a marriage? About being married to a woman? They don't fucking know. But if they set up the narrative so that there's no dependence. There's no one, anything that you get, it goes to the church when you die.
So I have two cousins that are priests.
Have we got a new pope yet?
No. Two cousins that are priests. Both of them hurried up and got married before they became ordained so they could fuck and have a wife. I always wonder, like, do they argue at home? And if they do, does she have to bow down to him because he's a hand of God? Like, it's so fucking weird. But Catholics can't. They can't get married before they're ordained because then they can't get ordained. So there's, slight rules.
And those rules don't apply to the women. Like nuns, they'll have none of that.
No. Well, yeah, no.
No, nuns aren't allowed to be married.
No. They're allowed to get molested by the priests, apparently. But they're not allowed to get married.
Yep, still spitting straight bullshit. Yep, that's what it is. I'm spitting straight bullshit. See, this is one of these typical dumbass trolls. Instead of actually like focusing on something that I'm saying, nope, it's all wrong. It's all bullshit. Everything I'm saying is bullshit. That's again, people argue what they can argue. So if everything I was saying was bullshit, then yes, that would be a legitimate argument. But I guess this person is all good with the pedophilia. I guess this person is all good with the homelessness and all good with the religious control and the Vatican's opulence and all that shit. Because everything is straight bullshit. Everything is spitting is straight bullshit. It's all stupid. Like you would think if everything I was saying was straight bullshit, how come these reoccurring trolls who come here every day and spend hours on my shit, how come they never come with more? How come you know what I'm going to talk about for the most part? How come you don't go do some research so that you can come at me with more information? Other than because you're a straight dumbass and this is the best you can do. You know, I just it's all so telling. It just they tell you everything. All of these kinds of comments consistently validate everything I'm saying. If they could say something I was getting was wrong, or something that I said was wrong, they would. They're not here going, hey man, I agree with this or I agree with that. They're coming here to attack. You know, it's an attack, but it's always something fucking stupid. I'm here for hours learning nothing. Should tell you something about. I'm in here for hours and learning nothing should tell you something about your lives. So I'm supposed to, one, be teaching you, and two, I'm supposed to know what you're learning? And that's supposed to tell me something about my lives? Because you're too dumb to learn anything new? Or are you just so arrogant as that you think you already know all of this stuff? And apparently support it, I guess. I mean, again, look at how stupid my opposition consistently is. All these people have to do is focus on one specific issue. You're getting this wrong. Here, let me tell you why. And then I'll say, okay, let me address the thing you said. And then you come at me with, no, you're wrong because of the... Like, that's how it should go. But instead, it's this dumb bullshit that I don't even have to think about to debunk. I can literally read it and then immediately you can point out how stupid they are. It's never like they say something and I'm like, oh, wow. Well, that's an interesting thought. Well, Well, what about this? It's never like that. It's always an immediate response. If we know what you're going to talk about, that's a problem. Means you recycle the same bullshit daily. Yep, that's what I do. So what I should do is talk about something new every day. Considering what I talk about inspires people to come back every day and talk shit and cry and blah, blah, blah. Clearly what I'm doing works. But I should be talking about other shit because this person's too dumb to actually debunk something I'm saying. Anything. Any one specific thing. Isn't that strange? Isn't it strange how I can sit here and ask you guys, come on, just pick one thing. Pick one thing I'm getting wrong and then tell me how I'm wrong. Debunk it. Make me look stupid. Argue with the phone now, buddy. Peace. Yeah, you better run away, you fucking coward. You better run. Now that you're realizing how stupid you are, you'd better run. You know, this is exactly it. This is what I'm consistently pointing out, and I wouldn't be able to do it nearly as well if not for these perfect examples of it. Like, can you imagine that? Like, think about it. In any other situation, somebody's saying, "Okay, so what am I getting wrong about this?" And people come in and go, "Man, you're just always wrong. Your haircut's stupid. You talked about this yesterday. I'm leaving." Nah. Why don't you tell me what I'm wrong about? No, no. You talked about this the other day, so I'm not talking, but I'm leaving. What kind of crybaby weird ass bullshit is that? You know, it's the insecurity, it's the stupidity, this is how you maintain that stupidity. You have to defend against it somehow, and the only way that you can come up with how to do it is this kind of stupid shit. People argue what they want to argue, or what they can argue, or think they can argue. And I appreciate it. Like, none of these comments ever negatively affect me because they make my point. You know, this shouldn't be such a difficult thing. Did you want me to roll on? I figured by the time I hit it a few times, it would be so small you wouldn't want it anyway. Sorry. All right, let's see. So that is the studies in the scripture. I gave you what it gives me. Purpose. Oh, the purpose. The series was written as a Bible study aid. Wow. Chart from Divine Plan of the Ages, Studies in the Scriptures, number 1. Boy, that's not Masonic at all, is it? It's only got pyramids with all-seeing eyes and shit.
All over the place.
Right. That's good old Christianity for you. That's me. I'm making it up. All right. All those all-seeing eyes on the chart. This is the Jehovah's Witness bullshit. Russell held that topical study was the best approach rather than verse by verse. So this is where that concept of
things out
right.
Of context.
Take this piece and then go to this other chapter and see how this completely different book, this completely different story, this completely different thing starring completely different people at a completely different time. You see how that actually makes this verse, but yeah, it's dumb. And it's interesting too because the last people that are willing to talk or discuss or study are the Jehovah's.
And he did that. He proclaimed that what? When?
That's in the first book. The series contains commentary about biblical events and expressions and progresses from elementary topics such as the existence of God and promoting the Bible as God's word to deeper subject matter throughout the series. I would love to know what it actually says. Russell did not claim infallibility, but declared that God's plan of salvation could not be understood independently from his writings. He stated, if he then lays the studies in the scripture aside and ignores them and goes to the Bible alone, though he has understood the Bible for 10 years, our experiences show that within 2 years he goes into darkness. without our book telling you why does the Bible, such a complicated, easily misunderstood bunch of shit? If it's really God's word, why didn't God make it really easy to understand? Or is that more of that, trials and tribulations you have to suffer through reading the Bible to you know, get some growth out of it. Man, is that fucking ridiculous. But he's saying without his companion guide, you wouldn't be able to actually understand the Bible. So you need his version of it to be able to understand it. Or else you go into darkness. I swear they say the dumbest things. I forgot about this guy. Remember the time he said that newspapers couldn't be printed in the 1800s, that the technology was too great, also didn't think horses could live 200 years ago. Yeah. Remember? Hey, sweetheart. Ange. Oh, she's gone. You guys remember when I said that newspapers couldn't be printed in the 1800s? Yep. And that horses didn't think horses could live 200 years ago here. Yep. That's what I said. You guys get it? You guys see how instead of addressing like the actual points being made right now, this person comes in with this fucking goofy ass flex, trying to pretend like, remember that you remember this thing that he didn't say, but I'm gonna say he said it? Oh, so stupid. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I truly wish there were actually smarter, like, if my opposition was smarter, then I would be smarter. The more I'm challenged in this regard, the more I'm then forced to learn and know. But the fact that it's just such dumb stupidity over and over again, it just makes it too easy. It's just too easy. Last live I saw you said that. Wait, I just got on. Tell me about what you're talking about now. Oh, so before you even you heard what was being talked about, you were like, hey, pay attention to me. Hey, pay attention to me. I'm going to say something stupid. Pay attention to me. It's not about what's being talked about. It's about me. That's what I said on the last live, is that horses couldn't live here 200 years ago, and that newspapers couldn't be printed. Such dumbassery. This is coming from someone who doesn't know what the fucking linotype is. This is coming from someone who just doesn't think. Yep. The idea of horses, existing in a narrative in the wintertime, doing laborious activities like, building, being the horse, going across the ice and shit. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I'm pretty sure that's what this doofus is referring to. The last time I saw you, blah, 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 blah. Yep, that's what I said. Oh, I love it. I love this weird ass crybaby shit. This is probably a person who believes in God and doesn't like that it's getting blown up. But this is how they operate. Person after fake profile after fake profile. Isn't that interesting how it works? To me, it's just fascinating. It's fascinating to see how stupid these people are and how desperate they are, and where, what kind of arguments that stupidity and desperation leads to. And it's that stupidity that I just always wonder, like, how do people exist in this level of stupid and continue to believe it? When I'm supposed to be wrong and stupid, you should be able to do to me what I do to you. But you can't, and then cower and lie and do whatever you can to maintain your foolishness. It's just so strange. But that's what we all do. You wonder how, like, people will have a kid that does horrible things, and they'll be like, my kid is just great. I don't understand. Like, how did you not see it? No, Daisy, another great example. Daisy comes up a lot. But Daisy, was David. Daisy had to come out to his family. And when she finally came out, her dad, had an issue with it. And you just go, well, how did your dad ever think you weren't gay? This is a guy whose mannerisms are feminine, who has the gay voice. He even said it. Like, if anything, he said, if anything should have given away, it was my voice. Not sure what that is, why that's a thing. It doesn't matter the culture, the language being spoken, whatever it is, where they're from, north, south, inner city, fucking country, whatever. Where does the gay voice come from? It has to be something to do with our biology. But to think that this guy ever had to come out to anyone is just sort of goofy, because there's literally nothing heterosexual about that person, to the point where they're considering transition surgery where they cut their fucking dick off. Well, they don't cut it off. They peel it and turn it inside out. That's so weird. But like that, we believe what we want. This guy believed that his son was gonna give him grandchildren and bang a bunch of broads and, I don't know, play football or some shit. And he didn't come out till late in his teenage years. And to think that, like, just how could anybody have ever thought anything differently? It's just strange. But that's what we do. We tell ourselves we see things the way we need to see them to maintain whatever crazy delusions we have going on. I didn't even know since you said that horse stuff. You mean yesterday? I thought you said I said it yesterday. The last live. I also don't believe in the Bible, if that's what you're talking about now. You also stuck by your horse thing, so you must have said it. Did I say horses couldn't exist? I don't think I said they couldn't exist. But you go ahead and keep doubling down on your David's not gay beliefs. Okay? No, I did not. I said the last time I saw. Yeah. Okay, well then that must have been yesterday, because yesterday was the first live in well over a week, and we talked about it yesterday. So that was yesterday. And what kind of crazy drugs are you on that you don't realize that was yesterday? Stupidity. Stupidity. Over and over again. This is exactly what the problem is. For some reason, and this is the part I don't understand, I don't get the benefit. I don't get the benefit of maintaining the thought process the way it is. This make America great again bullshit. When was America great? Clearly Trump's talking about a previous time in history when people of color, women, gays, they didn't have the same rights that they have now. But this is the stupid thing. I don't watch you daily. You know all the things you say. Yep, you do watch daily. Shut the fuck up. You watch daily and you cry and you bitch and you complain and just stupid shit. Anyway, let's see. Shlomo's World. Studies in the scriptures claim to represent that humankind can reach the end of the current era and that Jesus would soon separate the wheat from the weeds. The finished mystery. Ooh. Russell had stated, not Russell stated, not he had stated. I love when people do that shit. That's so stupid. Russell had stated an intention to write a 7th volume of studies, which would be a commentary of the books of Ezekiel and Revelation. God, Revelation is the dumbest shit. I actually really want to read this study in the scriptures just to see how they do it, how they reconcile these things, how they, he explains this stupid kind of shit. Following Russell's death in 1916, a 7th volume entitled The Finished Mystery was published in 1917 and advertised as his posthumous work. Posthumous work. The 7th volume was a detailed interpretation of the books of Ezekiel and Revelation, as well as the Song of Solomon. An advertisement for the book in Zion's Watchtower called it the true interpretation, and it was promoted as being of the Lord prepared under his guidance. Well, isn't that the opposite of what he said? Immediate controversy surrounded both its publication and content. It was soon established that it was largely written and compiled by 2 of Russell's associates, Clayton J. Woodworth and George H. Fisher, and edited by Russell's successor, Joseph Franklin Rutherford. The abandonment of several core doctrines under Rutherford's presidency prompted the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society to cease publication of all 7 volumes of the Studies of the Scripture in 1927, and distribution of remaining stock ended in 1929. The 6 volumes of the Studies of the Scriptures authored by Russell are still published by independent groups within the Bible student movement. Man, this is just nuts. You'd think it would be better. Origins. The author of the first 6 volumes of the studies reported that he did not... Oh, yeah, we already read that part. All right, so let's go back to... Okay. And so my wife was saying, it's just a few hundred copies. Now we're back to Charles Taze Russell, the guy who created this kind of shit, the author of those things. From 1886 to 1904, he published a 6-volume Bible study series titled Millennial Dawn, later renamed Studies in the Scriptures, nearly 20 million copies of which were printed and distributed around the world in several languages during his lifetime. In 1886 to 1904, what were the printing methods? I mean, how did they do this? The linotype machine was recently invented at this point. So they definitely had access to the linotype by now. But 20 million copies of something. The amount of paper, the bindings, the covers, and then to distribute that around the world, 20 million copies. That seems like that would take some significant logistics. Maybe I'm just crazy, but how does that make sense to anyone? I mean, you're taught one thing. When I talk about early 1900s, you don't think about, airships and skyscrapers and all that shit. Even though it existed, you don't think about it. When I talk about the 1900s, the early 1900s, late 1800s, you think about people in shacks, farming and just doing nonsense. A 7th volume was, we did this. After Russell's death, a crisis surrounding Rutherford's leadership of the society culminated in a movement-wide schism. As many as 3/4 of the approximately 50,000 Bible students associated in 1917 had left by 1931. This resulted in the formation of several groups with variations of the name Bible students. Those who remained associated with the Watchtower Society adopted the name Jehovah's Witnesses in 1931, while those who severed ties with the society formed their own groups, including the Pastoral Bible Institute in 1918, Layman's Home Missionary Movement in 1919, and the Dawn Bible Students Association in 1929. Charles Taze Russell was born to Scotch-Irish parents. Immigrant Joseph Lytle, Lytle or Lytel, because, everybody has the multiple spellings of their names and multiple identities from back then. And Anna Eliza Bierney on February 16th, 1852 in Allegheny, Pennsylvania. Russell was the second of 5 children, of whom 2 survived into adulthood. His mother died when he was 9 years old. The Russells lived for a time in Philadelphia before moving to Pittsburgh, where they became members of the Presbyterian Church. When Charles was in his early teens, his father made him partner of his Pittsburgh haberdashery store. By age 12, Russell was writing business contracts for customers and given charge of some of his father's other clothing stores. You gotta love these narratives. By 12 years old, do you know what a 12-year-old looks like? Do you know how 12-year-olds think and oh, well, this was a different time, and no. He was 12. My dumbass kid at 12, I can't imagine giving him the fucking reins over anything. Like, it's just silly. It would be silly to take a 12-year-old seriously. If I was an adult and I went to a business and they were like, well, here, talk to this 12-year-old because they're in charge of our business handlings, I'd be like, no, I'm good.
dumpster that they're chipping the trees in. They have the whole thing blocked off. You don't notice it right away. So you get all the way up there and then you have to back down the street to then go down the side street.
Shit happens.
It's not the city, it's a personal residence. Fuck that. So
listen to this. So when Charles was in his early teens, his father made him partner of his Pittsburgh haberdashery store. By age 12, Russell was writing business contracts for customers and given charge of some of his father's other clothing stores. Why would anybody believe that? I just, life wasn't so much different that 12-year-olds were adults back then. He was 12. Imagine, Nathan, you walk into a store and you're told that Nathan is in charge of things. You just wouldn't, you'd walk out. You'd walk out.
Me at the same time, at 14, it was me and a 15-year-old running the fucking pizza place at night.
You weren't running things. You weren't. You were managing a location where you weren't in charge of the store. It wasn't like you were in charge of ordering and handling business contracts and dealing with, come on. You worked there. At age 13, Russell left the Presbyterian Church to join the Congregational Church. In his youth, he was known to chalk Bible verses on fence boards and city sidewalks in an attempt to convert unbelievers. He particularly noted the punishment of hell awaiting the unfaithful. So not only was he this adult child who was handling business decisions and all this other shit, he was also using chalk to write on the sidewalks and on you know, because the sidewalks back then were made of wood, some of them. I mean, it's just so crazy. It's all just such crazy nonsense. At age 16, he discussed with a childhood friend, a discussion with a childhood friend on the faults perceived in Christianity, such as contradictions in creeds, along with medieval traditions. I mean, so by 16, that would be 1860, right around 1870. So right around 1870, this guy had, this teenager, this kid, had access to all of this information. Where was he getting all of this information? Where was he getting all the books on the medieval traditions and all that shit? How did they... It's one of those things I always find the most fascinating about our historical account, is we'll be told about how this person or that person, you know, like Dionysus and the reason why we live in AD, why it's 2000 AD. The idea that some dude in Italy in 520, well, in what he decided was 525, you know, somehow backdate, like figured out that it was actually 525 based on what? What historical accounts did he have access to that he could say, okay, this thing happened 30 years ago, and then this thing was 25 years before that, and then this thing was... How did he do that? Where did he come up with the 525, especially when, according to our narrative, the concept of zero wasn't a thing until... It didn't reach Western society until the 1100s to the 1300s. That's what we're told. We're told that there wasn't a concept of zero. Like, what? Why would you believe that? What did they call nothing? Math is math is math is math. It's math. So if you take 2 and you subtract 2 from it, you're going to get 0. You're telling me that all of the people that built all the great structures and the aqueducts, the Roman aqueducts, the Colosseums, the all the Greek stuff, all the stuff everywhere, they didn't have a concept of zero? How could they have possibly done that? How do you make anything level and flat if you don't have a concept of zero? There have to be a 0-degree shift in the floor plans and shit. Like how do they... What? But this is something I always struggle with, because I was alive in the, you know, in the 80s and 90s before the internet came to be, and I had to do plenty of book reports and shit like that. And the book report meant I had to go to a library, and then I had to, hopefully the books that the report was on hadn't been checked out, and or I would have to use microfiche, which was such a pain in the fucking ass to use. Microfiche was the worst. And to think that somehow, you know, like even the old libraries, you hear about the Library of Alexandria being burnt. Who filled it? What did they fill it with? How did they have libraries with books in them from multiple sources? What was the printing process like back then? You know, and when you find those old books are marvelous compared to our books today. So how did they mass produce those books? But how would this kid in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, be, you know, have access to any of this information to begin with? What libraries did he go to? Who filled those libraries? How were those libraries filled with books? Where did all those books come from? Who compiled them? Who the logistics of putting it all together? Who managed all that? Like these are the questions to me that sort of destroy this ChatGPT narrative we're given. Because they never thought we would have access like we do to be able to understand it. Back in the day, people just told you shit and you believed it. Okay, well, that's what they said. But it's just not the way it works. You know, it's not how things work. And so we know that what was it? At age 16, we know about this conversation that this guy had with his friend. In 18, oh wait. Contradictions in creed, along with medieval traditions that led Russell to question his faith. He investigated various other religions, but concluded that they did not provide the answers he was seeking. So again, this kid he's 16 years old in 1870. Where is he studying all of these other religions at? And then, of course, they didn't give him the answers he was seeking, so he had to create his own. In 1870, at age 18, he attended a presentation by Adventist minister Jonas Wendell. Russell later said that, although he had not entirely agreed with Wendell's arguments, the presentation had inspired him with renewed zeal and belief that the Bible is the Word of God. Based on what? And where was this presentation held? Like, isn't this kid supposed to be in charge of all these stores and shit? And yet somehow he's also doing all this other stuff. On March 13th, Russell married Maria Frances Eckley. So this was by what, 27? After a few months of acquaintance, he just couldn't wait to fuck. So he must have been what? He was 27 at this point and still virgin? This 16-year-old who at some point had questioned his faith and was in charge of all these haberdashery stores and, you know, really? The couple separated in 1897. So he was divorced. Isn't that like a cardinal sin? Russell blamed the marriage breakup on disagreements over Maria Russell's insistence on a greater editorial role in Zion's Watchtower magazine. So she wanted to be a bigger part of things, and he was like, no, that's my magazine, no. And so he divorced his wife. That's a reason to go against the covenant you make with God to, you know, share forever and blah, blah, blah. That's how that works? A later court judgment noted that he had labeled the marriage a mistake, quote, 3 years before the dispute over her editorial ambitions had arisen. So he lied then, because it wasn't about that. He just lied. Maybe it's because he was 27 when he got married and was a virgin and they weren't sexually compatible. Maybe. Maria Russell filed a suit for legal separation in the Pennsylvania Courts of Common Pleas at Pittsburgh in June of 1903. In 1906, she filed for divorce under a claim of mental cruelty. Oh my God. I sure wish there was a Jehovah here so I could talk about it with him. She was granted a separation. She wasn't allowed to leave. You're not allowed to separate from your spouse until the court says it's okay. With alimony in 1908, Maria Russell died at the age of 88 in St. Petersburg, Florida on March 12, 1938 from complications related to Hodgkin's disease. She was 88 years old. She died from being 88. So she lived another 22 years after he did. Wait, if she was 88 in, what did it say? In 38, that means she was born in 1850. And he was born in 52, I believe. Yep, so she was older than him. That's why you don't marry older broads, man. Wow. Russell was a charismatic figure, but claimed no special revelation or vision. It's hard to see in the sunlight. For his teachings, and had no special authority on his own behalf. He stated that he did not seek to found a new denomination, but intended to gather together those who were seeking the truth of God's word during this harvest time, right? Because he sold everybody on the idea that Jesus is coming. Jesus is coming. It's death, doom, and gloom. And I guess as long as he was saying that he didn't want to create a new denomination, that made it okay that he was creating a new denomination. Got it. He wrote that the clear unfolding of truth within his teachings was due to the simple fact that God's due time has come, and if I did not speak and no other agent could be found, the very stones would cry out. What? Like, again, this is he's saying, oh no, I'm not special. No, I'm not. I don't have any sort of divine no, I'm just like you, except for my teachings are the best in the world, and if I don't speak out and push my teachings, then even the stones would cry out. The stones. He viewed himself and all other Christians anointed with the Holy Spirit as God's mouthpiece and an ambassador to Christ. Later in his career, he accepted without protest that many Bible students, which is the group name. How you doing? Man, that's a beautiful dog. Jesus. What a crazy color on that one. Viewed him as the faithful wives servant of Matthew 24:35 or 45. Well, that's just shortly after Matthew 24:34. Matthew 24:34 is when Jesus says, "Verily I say unto you that none of these things shall come to pass until every one of this generation has died," when he was talking about Revelations. So what's Matthew 24:45? Matthew 24 is the 24th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. It commences the Olivet Discourse, or Little Apocalypse, spoken by Jesus Christ, also described as the eschatological discourse, which continues into chapter 25. It contains Jesus' prediction of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. Mark 13 and Luke 21 also cover the same material. Matthew 1:9-12 on the recto side of Papyrus 1, written about 250 AD. Sure it was. This, you gotta love that papyrus that lasts forever. Text. I'm trying to find. Why can't I just find the fucking Mount of Olives? Jesus and his disciples then proceeded to the. Okay, well let's read what it says. In the preceding chapters 21 through 23, Jesus had been teaching in the temple and debating with the Pharisees, Herodians, and Sadducees. Jesus and his disciples now leave the temple, Matthew 24:1, or the temple grounds in the New Living Translation. Theologian John Gill observes that Jesus was never to return. This is just so stupid. I cannot believe people fucking believe this. You are a stupid human being if you believe this shit. Arthur Carr reports that in descending the Kidron Valley to the east of the temple and then ascending the slopes of the Mount of Olives, the disciples could look back and see the temple rising with the colonnade of dazzling white marble, surmounted with golden roof and pinnacles, and founded on the structure of huge stones. Gee, how did they build that shit? I mean, to me, it just sounds like a fairy tale. If someone's making a fairy tale to try to convince people, you're like, yeah, the temple was dazzling white marble, surmounted with a golden roof and pinnacles. Oh, it's beautiful. Stones from the western wall of the Temple Mount, Jerusalem, thrown onto the street by Roman soldiers in the siege of Jerusalem 70 CE. And they've just been left there so everybody could see them. 2,000 years later. This is so dumb. In this introductory scene, Jesus predicts that not one stone shall be left here upon another. The prediction follows the sentiments expressed by Jesus in Matthew 23:37-38. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, see, your house is left to you desolate. Methodism's founder, John Wesley, says that the prediction was most punctually fulfilled in that the majority of the temple buildings were burned and then dug up on the orders of the invading Roman general Titus in 70 AD. After death. Well, it's Anno Domini, something like that. It means in the year of our Lord. It's not after death. Jesus and his disciples proceeded to the Mount of Olives, where a conversation occurs about the end of the age. Jesus' words were called the Little Apocalypse or Olivet Discourse. Now, the biggest question I always have when it comes to the Bible is who was writing all of this down? Were there little cherubs? Little cherubs with their little naked butts? The little angels, the baby angels with their wings flying around. Were they invisibly writing down conversations had between people? When Lot's two daughters are deciding that they're going to get their father drunk so that he doesn't know what he's doing, because it's okay if the men don't know. the woman knows, it's okay. As long as the man doesn't know that he's sleeping, raping his own children, that's all. It doesn't matter. You know, that's your Sodom and Gomorrah narrative. Jesus appears to have gone ahead of his disciples, Matthew 24:3, who come to him to inquire about the time of the temple's destruction. Tell us when these things will be, verse 3. And the significance of his parousia, Mark 13:3, states that only Peter, James, John, and Andrew came to speak with him. Where was he? And I love how they're reading. They're giving you the verse where they ask when all this shit's supposed to happen, but they don't give you the verse where Jesus tells you. Dale Allison, whoever the fuck that is, divides Jesus's writings into 3 groups. I didn't know Jesus wrote these things. I thought he just said them. In the beginning of the woes in the world at large, verse 3 through 8. Number 2, the intensification of the woes in the church, verses 9 through 14. And the climax of the woes in Judea, verses 15 through 28. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. Well, that sure as shit doesn't happen. You don't hear about them, all these people throughout history who claim to be Christ. Isn't that weird? The verse reads, I am Christ, lacking the definite article in the Geneva Bible, 1599, the King James Version, and the New Matthew Bible, a modernized version of the New Testament of William Tyndale. Carr, 1882 onwards, observes that the Christ, the Messiah, is correct, departing from the King James Version then in use. This is just dumb. Verse 9. Then they will hand you over to persecution, and they will kill you. You will be hated by all nations because of my name. This foretelling of Christian suffering is concerned with making it bearable. What? Verse 15, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. The abomination of desolation is alternatively described as the desolating sacrifice in the New Revised Standard Version. Citation from Daniel 11:31, Daniel 12:11. What? Verse 20. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. Uh-oh. There we have another one of those J references. Because Christians, you guys observe the Sabbath, right? The hardship associated with escape during winter is likely to arise from bad weather. Yeah, no shit. Allison notes the absence of any explanation as to why flight on a Sabbath day might also be more challenging. He suggests that Matthew's community might still have observed the Sabbath as a day of rest with its traditional travel restrictions and been both hesitant and unprepared for flight on such a day. Because they're Jews, because the Bible is a Jewish narrative. It's not about Christians. I can't say it enough. Verse 21 or 29 through 31. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened. The moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from heaven. What's going on, man? because because the stars are in the firmament that you can't get through. And they're not big giant gas balls, big giant suns from across the galaxy that took millions of years for the light to get here. Jesus doesn't say any of that. Jesus says the lights in the sky will fall down to the ground. And the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet. Again, not something that can happen on a round earth now, can it? How could everyone on earth see God coming out of the heavens if it's a round earth? In the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah gives an interpretation of Matthew 24:29 through 31 as his major theological work, Kitab-i Katan, the Book of Certitude, giving detailed explanations about the allegorical meanings of each of these phrases. Oh, it's not to be taken literally, it's to be interpreted however this person decided. Verse 35, oh, so we're going to just skip over Matthew 24:34. Isn't that weird? Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Jesus' words refer to an Old Testament saying recorded in Isaiah 51:6, for the heavens will vanish away like smoke, the earth will grow old like a garment, and those who dwell in it will die in like manner. But my salvation will be forever, and my righteousness will not be abolished. Arrogant motherfucker. This is what you believe. And that's it. That's the end of Matthew 24:34. It will not give me Matthew 24, or this is Matthew 24 according to the wiki. They're not going to tell you about Matthew 24:34. Interesting. About 1870, Russell and his father established a group with a number of acquaintances to undertake an analytical study of the Bible and the origins of Christian doctrine, creed, and tradition. Again, how? It's the 1870s. They just had access to all this information, huh? Any idea where they got it from? Any idea what libraries they were using? Any idea how this group? The group, strongly influenced by the writings of Millerite Adventist ministers George Storrs and George Stetson, gotta love that they're both named George, who were also frequent attendees, concluded that many of the primary doctrines of the established churches, including the Trinity, hellfire, and inherent morality of the soul, were not substantiated by the scriptures. As they're not. Uh-oh, I might be becoming a fucking Jehovah. Around January 1876, Russell received a copy of Nelson Barber's Herald of the Morning in the mail. Russell telegraphed Barber to set up a meeting. Barber and John Henry Patton visited in Allegheny in March of 1876 at Russell's expense so that he could hear their arguments and compare their conclusions that each side had made in their studies. So they traveled to his place just for him. He paid for them to come there and give their sermons. He put them up. 1876. Russell sponsored a speech by Barber in St. George's Hall, Philadelphia, in August of 1876, and attended other lectures by Barber. Among the teachings Barber introduced was the view that Christians who had died would be raised in April of 1878. So all these zombies are going to show up? Russell, who had previously rejected prophetic chronology, was moved to devote his life to what he was convinced were now the last 2 years before the invisible spiritual return of Christ. Told ya. He sold his 5 clothing stores for approximately $300,000, current value $8,858,000. Became a millionaire. He sold all his shit and became a millionaire. I guess his father was like, yeah, go ahead. With Russell's encouragement and financial backing, Barber wrote an outline of their views in 3 Words and the Harvest of This World, published in 1878. 3 Worlds and the Harvest of This World in 1877. A text Russell had previously written titled The Object and Manner of Our Lord's Return was published concurrently through the offices of the Herald of the Morning. Russell was eager to lead a Christian revival and called 2 separate meetings of Christian leaders in Pittsburgh. Russell's ideas, particularly stressing the imminence of the rapture and the second advent of Christ, were rejected both times. When 1878 arrived, failure of the expected rapture brought great disappointment for Barber and Russell and their associates and readers, but one of Russell's associates claimed that Russell was not upset. While talking with Russell about the events of 1878, I told him that Pittsburgh, like this is just some random dude's thing written in 18 whatever that is now forever in the history books. Like think about this. This random guy's note. I told him that Pittsburgh papers had reported he was on the 6th Street Bridge dressed in a white robe on the night of the memorial of Christ's death, expecting to be taken to heaven together with many others. I asked him, is that correct? Russell laughed heartily and said, I was in bed that night between 10:30 and 11 p.m. However, some of the more radical ones might have been there, but I was not. Neither did I expect to be taken to heaven or at that time, for I felt there was much work to be done preaching the kingdom message to the peoples of the earth before the church would be taken away. So he didn't believe what he had been teaching? Confused by what was perceived to be an error in calculation, Russell re-examined the doctrine to see if he could determine whether it had biblical origins or was simply Christian tradition. He concluded that the doctrine was Christian tradition. Ow! Based on? Through the papers of the Herald, he wrote about what he had concluded on the subject. Barber, embarrassed by the failure of their expectations, rejected Russell's explanation. They conducted a debate in successive issues of the journal from early 1878 to mid 1879. Jesus. In a matter of months, Barber changed some of the views which he and Russell had previously shared and no longer relied on prophetic chronology. They began to debate over the issues of Christ's ransom, and the two eventually separated because of their disagreements. Russell withdrew his financial support and started his own journal, Zion's Watchtower and the Herald of Christ's Presence, publishing his first issue in July 1879. Barber formed the Church of the Strangers that same year, continuing to publish the Herald of the Morning. But he didn't want to create his own denomination or anything. Oh man, there's just so much here. I'm going to finish this, though. So, am I going to finish this? No, I'm not going to finish this. Okay, I'll finish this one part, and then we'll be done. In 1881, Russell founded Zion Watchtower Tract Society with William Henry Conley as president and Russell as secretary-treasurer. They intended to dismantle or to disseminate tracts, papers, doctrinal treatises, and Bibles. All materials were printed and bound by Russell's privately owned Tower Publishing Company for an agreed price, then distributed by colporteurs is the distribution of publications, books, and religious tracts by carriers called colporters or colporters. The term does not necessarily refer to the religious book peddling. So this is just some guy on a fucking horse? Colportage became common in Europe with the distribution of contending religious tracts and books during the religious controversies of the Reformation. In addition to controversial works, the inherent book peddling colporters also spread widely cheap editions of the popular works of the day to an increasingly literate rural population which had little access to bookshops of the cities. The American Tract Society is often credited as one of the first organizations in the United States to be involved in colportage. ATS is an evangelical organization established in 1825 to distribute Christian literature. In Christ in the Camp, or Religion in Lee's Army, Dr. William Jones refers to the chaplains carrying Bibles and tracts during the American Civil War as colporters. In addition to public preaching, distributing literature was a large part of the work of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia. The American Bible Society and the American Tract Society were among the largest organizations involved in colportage in the United States. D.L. Moody founded the Bible Institute Colportage Association in 1894 to distribute tracts and books. Now known as Moody Publishers, they continued to publish religious materials and with proceeds supporting the Moody Bible Institute. The Seventh-day Adventist Church calls their book distributors literature evangelists, but until about 1890, the term colporter was used to describe SDA literature evangelists. Jehovah's Witnesses were active in the full-time ministry, were called colporters until 1931. Today, those participating in full-time ministry are called pioneers. Okay, but they're just saying they existed. There's no explanation as to how. How did they get those things? Oh, shit. The society was incorporated in 1884. It was incorporated. Think about that. What? Meaning there was like a stock market or some shit back then that the society had to be incorporated into. With Russell as president, and in 1886, the name was changed to Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Tract. What the fuck are tracts? In 1908, Russell transferred the headquarters of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society to Brooklyn, New York, where it remained until 2015 when it was relocated to Warwick, New York. With the formation of the Watchtower Society, Russell intensified his ministry. The Bible study group had grown to hundreds of local members with followers throughout New England, the Virginias, Ohio, and elsewhere. They annually re-elected him pastor and commonly referred to him as Pastor Russell. Congregations that eventually formed in other nations also followed this tradition. In 1881, Russell published his first work to gain wide distribution, Food for Thinking Christians. The 162-page pamphlet. Holy shit. She was like, they're thin little nothings. Chubby! In 1881, Russell published his first work to gain wide distribution, Food for Thinking Christians, the 162-page pamphlet. So much for thin little nothings. Isn't that just fucking insane? Was published using donated funds amounting to approximately $40,000 or $1.3 million in today's money. It has a circulation of nearly 1.5 million copies over a period of 4 months, distributed through the United States. Hang on, I gotta, hang on a second. Look at that, still reconnected. Now I have 5 viewers. Before I didn't have as many, now I have 5.
Nathan had 15?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm done. So, you guys have yourself a great day. I can't even see the comments anymore. That seems to happen now. But pedophiles, kill yourself. Don't forget to go to the description, get your free download, get the link to Hollywoodism, which actually explains all of this shit, and go. There'll be a link to the Facebook page, which which you can find our song "Nice Try Diddy," which is awesome. It's our newest song, but we have another one about to drop here too, called "COVID Sauce." That just hasn't dropped yet, but you can go check it all out. You can get it for free. You can do all this, that, and the other. Go watch Hollywoodism, and most importantly, pedophiles, kill yourself.